It is now 7 p.m. Time to open the August 2nd meeting of the Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission. Will staff please note the presence of a quorum?
Ms. Berkman?
Here.
Mr. Deck?
Here.
Mr. Horke?
Here.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Dr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Maui? Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz? Ms. Spoljaric?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve tonight. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Staff, please call the roll.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Spoljaric?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We have the complete variety pack of items to attend to tonight: approvals, a recommendation to council, and 7 public hearings. Will staff please review all the rules of procedure for those items?
Due to the COVID-19 emergency as declared by the Governor of Indiana, the format and conduct of the meeting has been modified to comply with executive orders regarding the conduct of public meetings, public hearings, and public gatherings. Relevant portions of the Indiana Open Door Law have been amended or suspended during the pendency of this emergency. For our items tonight that do require a public hearing, the meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition, then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak, and the public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard, and any emails received during the presentation have been provided to the Plan Commission members. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments, and the Plan Commission will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. Our non-public hearing items will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes, and the Plan Commission will then act upon the petition. For our general rules of conduct, we ask that you please not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time, and again, if you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regards to a public hearing, please fill out a yellow card, which are available back by the door, as well as up here near the podium, and bring it to me prior to the presentation of that petition. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record, and we ask that you please not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed, and you will be advised when there is approximately 30 seconds remaining. If you are not attending in person and wish to comment on a public hearing item tonight, you should please email your comments to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will be forwarded on to Plan Commission members and the petitioner. We'd also like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. Please mute your microphone when not speaking, and if you do come up to the podium to speak, please ensure that the microphone there is on as indicated by a green light. Thank you.
Thank you. For those attending virtually, let me re-emphasize the importance of emailing us with comments. There's no reason to wait until that petition is immediately in front of us. We'll pause for receipt of emails during that time, but if you can get them in sooner, that will be very helpful for the course of the meeting. First item is our consent agenda, which has 3 items. We've all had an opportunity to review them. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second. Green light.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner McCarty and a second by Commissioner Kelleher. Will staff please call the roll?
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Spoljaric?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, I make a comment?
Dr. Keller has a brief comment she would like to make on one of those. I'll allow her a few seconds to do so before we move on to the items of business.
Thank you. My comment regards the KFC, which I approved, the consent agenda. But in our UDO on the State Road 32 overlay, it requires that there be 5,000 square feet per building. The reason that was done, I talked to some of the people who helped write that, including Steve Hoover, was because instead of giving lot sizes, they were trying to get something so that we could get massing along 32, as is done in some of the other developments that you've seen where there are several different stores connected in one building. There is a section in our UDO that says case-by-case basis, something less than 5,000 square feet would be considered, as long as there was increased architecture or outside seating and things like that. So that had been done on some other projects along here. It usually involved a couple of city council members having input. I just want to make sure that if something comes back before us in the future, we don't leave it all up to staff to make that determination, that we have a chance to have some input on what things might be appropriate to allow us to decrease that 5,000 square foot limit. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. First item of business is the Compton subdivision, petition number 2107 ODP-14 and 2107-SPP-14. That is in front of us for a APC approval of the primary plat and overall development plan.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. This proposal is for the overall development plan and primary plat review of one lot on approximately 0.88 acres in the Compton PUD. This project is located at 15626 Spring Mill Road. The detailed development plan appeared before you this evening on the consent agenda. This project received a public hearing on July 6th and is now fully compliant with all applicable standards. As such, it is ready for approval this evening. Tim Nintrup of Keeler Webb Associates is here tonight. He does not plan to make a presentation, but is available for questions, as am I. Thank you.
Thank you. In the absence of a petitioner presentation, we'll move on, go through the commissioners to see if there are any questions or comments tonight regarding the Compton subdivision. We'll start with Mike Johns.
No questions, no comments.
Excellent. Councilor Spoljarek.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Deck.
No questions.
Very good. Dr. Kelleher. Very good. Victor McCarty.
No questions, thank you.
Very good. Kristen Berkman.
None, thank you.
I have none as well. So is there a motion to approve the Compton subdivision inclusive of the comment from the department regarding approvals?
I'll make a motion to approve the primary plat and overall development plan 2107-SPP-14 and 2107-ODP-14 with the following condition: that all necessary approvals be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and Hamilton County surveyors prior to the insurance issuance of an improvement location permit.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Staff, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Spoljarek?
Yes.
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item of business is Union Square, petition number 2107 ODP 17 and 2107 SPP 17. It also is in front of us for an approval of the primary plat and overall development plan.
For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the overall development plan and primary plat review of 3 blocks on approximately 2.91 acres in the Union Square PUD. This project is located south of Route 32 and west of Union Street. This project received a public hearing at the July 6th APC meeting and is now fully compliant with all applicable standards. As such, it is ready for approval this evening. Nathan Winslow from Structure Point and other representatives are here tonight to answer questions. I am also available if there are questions of staff. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no petitioner presentation, correct? Or is there?
Justin Moffett on behalf of Old Town. We are the petitioner for the project. I'll make it brief. We had a lot of debate at the
Sure.
last meeting. We are really just talking about the site plan, the overall layout, and in conversation with planning staff and the commission, we've acknowledged that even though our PUD allows the future projects, the buildings and facades to come through as consent agenda items, we would work to create a way to allow the APC to have a chance to review the buildings and make sure that they comply with the spirit of the PUD before we move forward with putting them on a consent agenda item. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the concerns, but we at this stage are really just locking the footprint over the overall development plan. Thank you.
Understood, thank you. Commissioner comments. We'll start with City Councilor Spoljarek.
Can we get clarification on what's happening with the legal drain for this project?
Absolutely. Old Town has been working with the county surveyor's office and on permitting to encapsulate it with, that's a Army Corps of Engineers permit, and I believe we have obtained that permit. So we have permission to go ahead and encapsulate that legal drain. And there's been coordination between our team and NDOT/Westfield City Engineering to make sure that we get the alignment right with how it connects north for the 32 project. We've coordinated from the beginning on how it ties into the Grand Junction Plaza and that drainage work. So the structure on Jersey Street is built to accommodate the piping that we would run through our site.
Okay, and one more question, this might seem minor, but it usually comes back to bite us sometimes. How are you handling trash for this whole site?
It's a great question. There'll be probably 2, if not 3, trash enclosures. They would likely be tied into the facades of the buildings. So with the multifamily structure, there would be at the streetscape, as a for example, this is a discussion we'll have when we bring the facades back, but we would have on Mill Street, the left side of the screen here, probably part of the facade where there would be some sort of roll-up door or a door where trash can roll out, and it's very typical for urban development to have that case. And then the food and beverage concept, bottom right screen, we'd probably incorporate something there. So I mean, it's very possible we would lose a parking space there so that we could have some sort of method to pull trash cans, large rolling cans out to the street so trucks can fork them in. But that is an ongoing discussion that we have about how to manage utilities and trash and keep them hidden from streetscape as much as possible.
And a lot of times when we look at these overall development plans, we have that detail. But
Usually you see those at the detailed development plan phase. The
Okay.
overall development plan, you're not really reviewing the building and the improvements on the site. They happen to show the footprints, but that's not even really a requirement at this phase.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Deck.
I don't have any questions or comments.
Very good. Dr. Kelleher.
Sorry, turn my microphone off. Nothing, thank you.
Very good. Victor McCarty.
None from me, thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
None, thank you.
Very good. Mike Johns.
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
I too have no questions or comments. Do we have a motion to approve with the condition recommended by staff?
I'll make a motion to approve the primary plat and overall development plan 2107-SPP-17 and 2107-ODP-17 with the following condition. All necessary approvals be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and Hamilton County surveyors prior to the issuance of an improvement location permit.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second from Victor McCarty and Kristen Berkman. Will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item next is Mule Barn Road Commercial PUD. Petition number 2107-PUD 20. This is the item that is in front of us for a recommendation to council.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, members of the Plan Commission. Good evening. For the record, Kevin Todd with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is a proposed change in zoning to approximately 10 acres of real estate, currently zoned AGSF 1 on Mule Barn Road, just north of the Shelby Materials plant, north of State Road 32. This item was before you, introduced at the City Council on June 17th, received a public hearing in front of you on July the 6th. And since the hearing, the petitioners made some modifications to the proposal, which I think they're planning to go through this evening with you in more detail, but essentially they've added some trees along Mule Barn Road frontage and a 4 to 6 foot mound on the west and north sides of the property based on some public input that was received at the hearing. This item is within the business park land use identified in the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. It is eligible for recommendation this evening. Mr. Andrew Greenwood with Patch Development is here this evening. I believe he plans to make a presentation. Following his comments, will be available for questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrew Greenwood with Patch Development. I will keep it as short and sweet as I can. Following our meeting with the neighbors and conversations with staff, different commissioners and others, we believe the project items of concern are really summarized by the 4 following items. Buffering and landscaping, building appearance and lighting, hours of operation and noise, and then traffic and road improvements. Do you have I can just run through it. We can go through it. So, as Kevin mentioned, in response to the questions about the landscape and buffering, we amended the PUD language to bulk up the plantings. We've a minimum of 4 to 6 feet on the berms to the north, the west, and the southwest that are adjacent to the non-Shelby neighbors. We added plantings and more dense plantings all along the perimeter in response to some of those questions and concerns. In terms of the lighting, the PUD requires us to meet the standard light ordinance, so we wouldn't be able to have light pollution. I believe that the neighbors to the south have a different lighting standard or a different light program. I think the next petition is the development plan, and they'll go over that in more detail, but we're willing to, or will commit to, no lighting will be above 25 feet in height and will all be down directional lighting, so we would have no light pollution to any of the neighbors because of that. And because of the spacing of where the actual plant is and the process that's going on and the neighbors. So we shouldn't have any light pollution whatsoever. Our standard plant hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. In our brief presentation, there's kind of an updated drawings of what the facility would look like and the office building. If we can get that up, we'll show it to you. If not, it should be in your information. We also commissioned a noise study, or IMI had a noise study done recently on a Scottsburg plant that's very similar. At 300 feet from the plant in one direction, over a 9-hour time period, the noise was non-detectable or below any sound level. And at 700 feet in another direction, it was an average of 30 decibels over a 9-hour time frame. As a comparison, 34 to 40 decibels is the same as a bird making a noise or the library. And with this plant being located in the middle of the site of the 10 acres, we believe that that should satisfy those concerns about noise. You should have also received a letter that was written by city engineer Jonathan Nail. We had multiple conversations with him and the Director of Public Works. It's our understanding the city of Westfield is in the process of widening both Mule Barn Road and making improvements to the intersection of Mule Barn and State Road 32. And it's explained in that letter kind of where things are at and as things are going forward. And we've committed to being cooperative and coordinating with everyone as that moves forward. And just for a little bit of more information, per NDOT, at State Road 32 and just west of Mule Barn Road, the 2020 daily traffic is over, in 2020, the daily traffic was over 8,300 vehicles per day. On Mule Barn Road in 2020, the daily traffic was over 1,500 vehicles per day. Our proposed additional traffic will be less than 100 trips per day. We'll have 10 fixed employees at the site, 8 concrete trucks. The desire here is to provide a perishable product that's in high demand in Westfield and to service IMI's customer base. Their most recent, or excuse me, the most close facility to the Westfield right now is Lebanon. And so this location will allow them to better serve the existing customer base. Again, increasing commercial taxes, the road impact fee would help to pay for those improvements that would occur on Mule Barn Road. And we're not asking for any incentives or abatement. So thank you for your time and ask that you give us a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. We'll go through commissioner comments, starting with Commissioner Deck.
It looks like you guys addressed a majority of the concerns presented at the last meeting. Shows that you were very sensitive to the comments that were made. I think you guys have done a great job, and those are the only comments I have.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher.
I agree with Mr. Deck's comments. I think you've done a great job. I do have a couple of questions, mainly for staff. You presented that there would be mounding on the north and the west side. It's not written in the ordinance, and I can't see from the diagram whether it's there. So I want to make sure that if we need to write it in the ordinance, because I wasn't sure it was on the picture.
It should be, the verbiage was added to the ordinance that was a minimum of 4 to 6 feet mounding, as well as that was added to the exhibit.
Right, but it
So-
didn't say where, and that was, does that,
Oh.
if it doesn't say where, does that mean it's all the way around? I don't want to make you have to do something you don't want to do.
Oh, we should clarify then, that the north, the west. My apologies.
No, that's okay. So it would be on the north and the west, and we could add that to the PUD wording?
Yeah, that can be part of the motion.
Okay.
If inclined to make a recommendation this evening, that can be part of the motion.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
And
and
my
that,
other question, I appreciate the,
Hold on.
it's already right here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is included in the
Oh.
landscape standards section. Include a minimum 4-foot berm on the north and
Oh,
western
yeah.
perimeter
Okay,
of the
it's in there.
property.
Sorry, I missed it. The other thing I wanted to address was the lighting, and I appreciate your stating that they will be no more than 25 feet high, because your neighbor to the south has something way up in the air, and I can imagine the neighbors find that a little bit annoying. Is that written in the ordinance, or was that?
No, we would have to add that, or that could be added as the motion.
Okay. Is that okay with staff? He mentioned that their lighting would be no taller than 25 feet high, but it's not written in the
Yeah.
ordinance, but he would be willing to add that.
That's our standard anyway, so,
Okay, so we don't need to do that then?
no, not necessarily.
Great, okay. I think that was pretty much it. I know that there's a discussion on Mule Barn Road and improvements there for this kind of traffic, and I understand that our utilities department is thinking about that or studying it. We had another complaint from the neighbors that many of these trucks were going north to 186th Street to do their east-west travel. And I don't want a commitment from you, but I would hope that we could encourage these commercial trucks to go to 32, and to go east-west and not up to 186th Street.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken with IMI, and they would much rather be driving on 32 than going north. It's much safer for them and a better route, so
Sure.
we will definitely coordinate that to the best of our ability.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Victor McCarty.
I agree with the sentiments already shared, so thank you for being a good neighbor.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
I just want to echo the thank you for working with those neighbors and increasing that landscape buffer. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Going to my left, Mike Johns.
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
Very good. Cindy Spoljarek.
I think you might be aware of my comments. A few of you are, I know staff is. So my concern from the beginning has been the intersection at 32. And obviously, we don't control that intersection. So I've met with representatives from NDOT, with Jeremy Lawler, John Nail. So it would be more likely 2026 before NDOT will use their discretionary funding to do improvements at Mule Barn and 32. There may be an option to do an interlocal agreement. Again, this is not done yet, so please don't anyone hang your hat on that. To possibly get it done sooner when we do our expansion of Mule Barn Road and the city taking on basically NDOT's project. And again, this is conceptual only. There is no agreement or anything yet. So I don't know that that's going to happen. Not knowing that, and with this being a critical aspect of the project for me, I can't say yes to this PUD with this issue hanging out there and not resolved. So I just want to put that out there, and I would hope that we could actually wait till we have further information to actually vote on this. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing different to add than what other commissioners have already commented on. I think there's been great improvement to the project. I understand what Cindy Spoljarek is concerned about, but I'm not of a mindset to try to sway the project to back off for an indeterminate amount of time. If we have a need and we have everything else accommodated and it's in an area designated for business, the work in progress towards making those improvements, I would certainly hope it doesn't take 5 years. Those that we have under our own control should happen more timely. If any other commissioners have thoughts regarding that, give you an opportunity now to weigh in, and then we'll see if there's a interest in a recommendation to council on this.
I'll jump in here.
Please.
I think the fact that this whole area is on our comprehensive plan as business should push any kind of improvements along Mule Barn further to the top of the list if there are no safety or urgent issues elsewhere. And I would hope that staff would talk with Mr. Nail and look at that, because we have 2 heavy industrial businesses here. We plan on having more because of its designation on the comp plan. So I think to get ahead of this, get a handle on it would be an appropriate thing to be brought to the beginning of some discussions by the utility department or the highway department in combination. That's it.
Any other commissioners have additional thoughts they'd like to offer right now?
I would just add the fact that I've been aware of Ms. Spoljarek's conversations trying to, with Jonathan Nail, the city, and hopefully NDOT, to try to get NDOT to act sooner than later. And from a council standpoint, I would support anything that we could do, if we can do anything to enter into an interlocal agreement with NDOT sooner than later to get that done.
Okay, thank you. In the absence of any further comments, or you have something?
I just wanted to
Jump in,
add that
please.
I appreciate Ms. Spoljarek's research into the situation with State Road 32. I know that was one of my initial concerns. And I have a question that cannot be answered by anyone here tonight, but perhaps in communicating with NDOT, is it even possible for them to put a flashing yellow light there until the intersection can be improved? It just, again, working for a trucking company, I know how slow those trucks can be turning on that road, and when the cars come over that hill, that can be tough. So maybe if there's a flashing yellow they could see in advance, that could be a real benefit while we wait for the road improvements. That's all I had to say.
And a fairly low-cost one at that.
I guess I'll just chime in real quick that I think here in Westfield, and I think any municipality, we have this constant struggle of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. And we need the road impact fees, as mentioned, to kind of push the Mule Barn Road improvements. So, I mean, it's a constant struggle. It's whatever individual's preference with it. But, I mean, yeah, I agree with what everyone has said in terms of needing to improve our roads. And, you know, I use that road frequently as well. There's a huge divot that can cause a problem to a car if they're not paying attention. It's just that, you know, it's time working against us. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is here for a recommendation to council. Do we have a motion for a recommendation to council? I will go ahead and move that we send a favorable recommendation to council on this item, Mule Barn Road Commercial PUD 2107-PUD-20. Does anybody care to second that?
I will second.
Thank you. I have a motion from myself, a second from Dr. Kelleher. Will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes?
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Abstain.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Last item of business before the public hearings is Mule Barn Road Commercial Subdivision. Petitions 2107-ODP-15 and 2107-SPP-15. This is in front of us for an approval of the primary plat and overall development plan. There are two conditions on this, as the approval cannot be finalized until the PUD is finalized. Staff presentation?
Yeah, really nothing further to add, but for the record, Kevin Todd with the Community Development Department. As mentioned, this is the primary plat and overall development plan for the Mule Barn Road Commercial PUD that you just heard. So pending council approval on that PUD ordinance at a future date, the primary plat and overall development plan before you this evening would be compliant.
Thank you.
So as such, the conditions, the recommended conditions are contingent upon council approval of the PUD ordinance.
Correct.
Yep, thanks.
Just in case there's anything different that's come to mind regarding this portion, we'll go through commissioner comments, starting with Dr. Kelleher.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Thank you. Victor McCarty.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
None, thank you.
Very good. Back to Mike Johns to my left.
No questions, no comments.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljaric, anything further?
Just my prior comments about the PUD.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Matt Deck.
I have nothing.
Very good. Nor do I. Is there a motion for this approval with the two conditions?
I will make the motion to approve the primary plat and overall development plan 2107 SPP-15 and 2107 ODP-15 with the following condition that A, the Mule Barn Road Commercial PUD ordinance 21-31 is approved by the Westfield City Council at a future meeting, and B, all necessary approvals be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and Hamilton County surveyors prior to the issuance of an important improvement location permit.
Thank you. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion from Victor McCarty and a second from Matt Deck. Will staff please call the roll?
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes?
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Abstain.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Deck?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to public hearing items. Another reminder to anybody that might be attending virtually, if you have anything that you would like to offer as far as public comments on any of these 7 hearing items, please start typing right away if you haven't already, and send your comments with the petition number in the subject line to planners@westfield.in.gov so we can keep the movement of the meeting on track if we possibly can. First public hearing is Highlands Latin School, 2108-ODP-18 and 2108-SPP-18.
Thank you. For the record, Rachel Remmenschneider with the Community Development Department. This proposal is for the overall development plan and primary plat of 1 lot and 1 block on approximately 30.88 acres in the AGSF1 district. This project is located at 3810 West 146th Street. This item is up for a public hearing tonight and has been properly noticed and advertised. However, the mailed notice misprinted the day of the hearing, stating that it was Tuesday, August 2nd, instead of Monday, August 2nd. Legal has been advised and determined that the notice was still sufficient. Staff received no public comments on this item. Michael Thompson from Hamilton Designs is here tonight to make a brief presentation. He and I are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Thompson. I'm a professional engineer with Hamilton Designs, 11 Municipal Drive, Fishers, Indiana. Thank you for the time this evening. Appreciate that. The request today is for the development plan and plat for the proposed Highlands Latin School. The project is located in the north side of 146th Street, just west of the intersection of Shelbourne Road. The property is approximately 30.9 acres. With the proposed split of 14.7 acres for the proposed school and 16.2 acres to remain undeveloped. Access to the property is through an entrance and exit onto the frontage road along the new 146th Street alignment. The current zoning is agriculture, single-family 1, which is appropriate zoning. The proposed building is 15,000 square feet with 143 parking spaces provided for the building. The intent of the project is to allow for a new primary and secondary school and leave the remaining tract of the land undeveloped. Utilities have been a challenge, but now are appropriately provided for the project, including a new water main and sanitary sewer service. The remaining challenge mostly revolves around access to the rear parcel and then the right-of-way to the south with additional right-of-way taken pushing the detention pond slightly north, along with a water main and landscape requirements. So, happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. We'll open the public hearing on this first at 7:38 p.m. Does staff have any cards regarding
Yes,
this one?
I have 2 cards.
Thank you.
First, we have Dan Lynch.
Good evening. I just have 3 quick comments, concerns about the project I just want to have addressed. My property is
Please state your name and address for the
Yep,
record.
apologies. My name's Dan Lynch. I'm at 4028 West 146th Street. It'll be 2 lots over from the proposed project on the frontage road. The first comment concern I have on it is if a proper stormwater analysis has been conducted on this project, as that area has had major issues with flooding due to the slope coming into all of the 6-acre properties through there. You can actually even see on that picture there where that natural drainage is, cutting about halfway through that property and then through the backs where it's kind of cleared and dry through there. Up to the point where my property, until it did the new construction of the road, was under 12 inches of water due to that runoff. The second is lighting. Since we have the parking lot going right next to the residential properties, if we are going to have light pollution on our properties, especially in the evening hours when the school is not open. And then third is along the frontage road, a concern about any drop-off and pickup lines that may happen. We're right next to Union Elementary, a little to the west, where we see consistent issues with lines backing up from cars during those drop-off pickup periods. With that frontage road, as you can see, it kind of bends around a curve there, and that curve is pretty blind until you reach where it flattens out, which is where that entrance to the school would be. And my concern is if there's a lot of backup on that road, it would cause delays getting to the properties there. Thank you.
Do we have a pointer? Could he point where this frontage, what he's talking about?
I can walk up if you want.
That's okay. I'm not clear on. Okay.
So right here is the frontage road off of Shelburne to access. So right about here, this is a blunt corner as it is, as you come around this road to enter the properties. The entrance to the school will be right here, so if there's any backup of traffic, there's no way to kind of get around it. It can cause any delays of trying to get any of the subsequent properties.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Carla Linzenich.
Thank you. Before you start, one more reminder to anybody attending virtually. We'll look for your comments to be here at the completion of the in-person comment that we're about to receive. So please type quickly if you have comments.
Good
Please go
evening, I'm
ahead now,
Carla
state your name
Lenzenig.
and address for the record.
I live at 4206 West 146th Street. Right here. My first concern is addressed to the Development Committee or whoever sent this advisory notice out, other than the date was wrong. It only went to people that were 2 properties adjacent and a quarter of a mile. So even though this road now ends right here at the cul-de-sac, this is an updated map, these properties all are the only properties on this road from here over. So it seems to me that it would have been logical to at least send notice to people that would have been directly related to the my other concerns, a couple are the same as Dan said, but I will, so I'll just pass over those. But my first concern is the number of vehicles that will be using that frontage road. The frontage road is 2 lanes. It's a not a very wide road. And they just redid it when they did 146th Street and added the curves on the frontage road to get to our properties. And it sounds to me like that would be a huge increase in the number of cars that are going to and from. And I would be concerned about whether they are going to back up also on the access road, which currently doesn't have a name. My next concern is this curve right here. This one's not quite so bad because there's not a drop-off there. But this curve right here, the drop-off goes right over the edge. The people who are doing this development told me that they're gonna put up some sort of signs that show there's a curve there, but they mentioned nothing about any protection, guardrails or anything. If you were to slide off this road here, which somebody did last winter already, you would end up probably rolling over your car. So this might not be for the developer of this property, but it's a concern overall over the safety of the number of people and the increase in traffic of people who are unaware of what this road is in order to get to the property. My next concern is currently they say they have no plan for the development of the back, but I would really like to know what the plan for the development of the back property is. Is it additional school? Can they sell it outright? Can they sell it to someone else? What that might be. Turn lanes as I mentioned, just maybe to get into the school, because that's gonna be when we are all coming and going as well, trying to get into and out of work probably. My drainage was one of my big concerns. And I think that was all for me.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else in the meeting room that has determined they would like to make a comment, or have we received any emails?
I have not received any emails and have no additional cards at this time.
Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing at 7:45 and give the petitioner's representative an opportunity to address anything that they feel they can address tonight.
Mike Thompson, 11 Municipal Drive, Fishers, Indiana, 46038. With me is Tim Houston. He's the president of the board for the school. He can probably advise us on the number of students he plans to have. And then if we could pull up the development plan that shows the parking lot. So there's two parking lots. The one to the west is for the older students and faculty to park in. And the east parking lot is intended to be empty all day, used for students during the day if needed for outdoor activities, but that's where drop-off and pick-up parking will park so that it won't back up down that drive aisle. Additionally, we stacked cars to see if we had enough room to stack one for every kid, and we did. That's why it's 3 lanes coming in rather than a traditional 2-lane road. And then we also had it 2 ways at both entrances, and we decided to make it 3 in on the east and 2 out on the west. That way we could stack as many cars as we possibly needed to in a large event, I guess. But we feel like the traffic for the number of students has been accommodated as well as we possibly can, and probably overly done so. The drainage will go through the standard review process. I'm sure you're familiar with it, and we didn't receive any comments on the review package for the drainage. It's a dry detention pond, and it's so big we had to make 2 dry detention ponds to make sure that the slope met the minimum. We didn't ask for any variances on that. And it goes through water quality units on the west, the north, and the east to treat the water. So we acknowledge all the water from this development, essentially this section, comes down into this area. Actually, the area to the north goes up to the northwest. There's no intention to do anything up there. We're splitting the lot just because this is the development here, and the school has no plans for the rear lot. I can let Tim discuss that if you'd like to come up. It was a large parcel of land, and they wanted to develop the south half, so that's how we came up with it.
Tim Houston, 13118 Brooks Landing Place, Carmel, Indiana. First of all, just a pleasure to have the school come up to Westfield. We're really excited. We've been working with your folks for quite some time. School's been around for 10 years now. We have 170 students. Typically, that represents about 60 to 70 vehicles that are coming to pick up and drop off. We currently do it in a parking lot much smaller than this one. This is going to seem like huge. And how it's done from a pickup and a drop-off standpoint is we use that front lot to bring folks in, and we organize them to come into the spots in there, and then kids get out of the car, and then we wait and we release so many cars at a time. So we can load that first parking lot with all of the students or all the vehicles from our school at this point in time. And then from a pickup standpoint, we'll come and we'll stage that front parking lot also. So we'll put all the vehicles there with kids that are being picked up, and then we send kids out and we wait till they're all in their cars, and then we release those vehicles at that point in time. So there should be no backup out there. Our driving high school students, which we have about 35 in the high school, and only a portion of those are actually driving at this point in time, along with the staff would park in that second parking lot there. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could just quickly just address the public notice radius question. Our rule is that public notice be required for properties within, 2 properties deep of the subject parcel or 660 feet, whichever's less. The petitioner obtains an address list from the county auditor's office. They run those queries on their mapping software to determine who all would be included in that notice, and they provided notice pursuant to that list. So, just for clarity.
Okay, thank you. We will go through commissioner comments on this petition, starting with Victor McCarty.
Oh, gosh. Always nervous to be the first one, but I just wanted to say first off, welcome to Westfield, and thank you for choosing us. I think it'll be a great use of the land. With concerns already mentioned, thank you for addressing those already. In addition, if there's any possibility to add additional buffering there on the west side with the parking lot between the neighbors, I think that'd be very much so appreciated. And when it just comes to lighting concerns, as we've mentioned many a time here on the board, keep it low, as well as maybe on a timer, and just make sure there's not too much light pollution, especially at night, because those who live out there are used to having clear night skies, at least for the most part, as they are now. So, and then I just had one question for staff. When was this project first introduced or approved by council?
It was not. This is an AGSF1 parcel,
Oh, okay.
and this use is permitted in that district by right.
Okay, thank you. I was a little confused on that because I hadn't seen it before, so appreciate that.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
Just to kind of build on to Victor's question, so will they be using the UDO for architecture standards, and when will we see the building renderings?
The architecture would be reviewed during the detailed development plan process. However, the AGSF1 district does not contain any architectural standards.
What? So they don't have to follow the UDO for architecture then?
No,
or-
because the UDO does not outline any architectural standards for non-residential uses in the agricultural districts.
Okay.
If it were in a residential district, the architectural standards they would comply with would simply be that they have to keep the residential character of the surrounding area.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Do you meet 5 days a week? Do the students come 5 days a week? I thought you had do you mind? Is that okay?
Yeah, we can
For
go
him
ahead and
to
have a
answer
little
that?
dialogue here.
Okay.
Do you have
Just
something you can share with us
between-
regarding your expectations on what you're going to construct out there?
Absolutely.
Thank
So
you.
Tim Houston, 13118 Brooks Landing Place, Carmel, Indiana. A 2-story, what I'll call a colonial-looking tilt-up building. So with the traditional pillars out front, so you drive onto a college campus or something like that. So it'll have that look and feel to it with traditional brick looking. So we want it to being a Latin school, you want it to have that tradition that comes along to it when you step onto it. So, but you guys will have a chance to do that, and we'd love any comments along that line. And your other question was we meet Tuesdays through Friday is when the school meets.
Okay, so it's a four day. I thought you had a little different
Yeah,
schedule.
it's
So
a
thank
4-day.
Thank
Yeah.
you for
Upper
sharing
school
that.
is Tuesday through Friday. Lower school is Wednesday through Friday. So the Wednesday through Friday is when you'd have all of those vehicles. On Tuesday, it's just our upper school.
Okay,
Thank you.
so as far as traffic, full traffic, 3 days a week versus 5, just so the neighbors know that. I do like your strategy with the drop-off and the pickup. I think drop-off normally, you're doing a lot of car drop-offs through the years, goes fairly smoothly. People drop off and they go on, but the pickup is when you can really get into trouble. And so I like your strategy of having the assigned parking for that. I think that's really well done. I just want to echo what Victor said about your neighbors to the west with this parking lot. That really isn't a rural feel to have a parking lot next to you. So thoughtfulness on that is very, very appreciated. And I don't think that neighbor was here tonight, but if you could reach out to them, I would appreciate to see what they would like along there as far as mounding or trees to kind of buffer them. Would be much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Mike Johns?
I just piggyback on Kristen's comments, please reach out to the neighbor and be very sensitive to their needs, particularly from a buffering standpoint. Thank you.
Cindy Spoljarek?
You know, when I first looked at this, and I'm looking at there's 3 lanes going in one-way direction, and that's just not something you see in Westfield very much, and it really caught my attention. And now it all makes perfect sense to me. So again, I think that's a fantastic idea, because most of our schools don't have that kind of setup, and how we wish we did. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Deck?
So you're moving from your Carmel location to Westfield?
Yeah, Tim Houston, 13118.
You don't have to repeat that every time.
Yes, we're actually in 2 locations at this point in time. COVID required us to have a little more space so that you could space out the kids and the teachers and stuff. So yeah, we're in 2 locations, First Baptist Church at 126th and Keystone, and the Episcopal Church over on Main Street. St. Christopher's is where we have our upper school, and then we have our lower school at
So you're
First
going to
Baptist.
combine them all here?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Westfield, and thank you for choosing us.
Oh, we're very excited.
Those are my only comments.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher?
I want to echo everybody else's comments. This is great. Your thought process going into this, the detail with the parking and the drop-offs is great. I have one question for staff, I guess, is we have a rear lot that's, I guess, is this divided into a separate lot? Or is it, I mean, has this been split into 2 parcels? And if so, do we have access, or do we have a second parcel back here that's landlocked?
Part of their proposal is part of the proposal is splitting the 30 acres into 2 separate lots.
Okay, and we normally don't allow that if it becomes a landlocked parcel, so how are we handling that?
That's something we're working on with the petitioner to determine access to that back lot if appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I think that was about it. We do have standards for lighting. Parking lot lighting would only be a certain height and that, shielded and down and turned off a percentage at certain hours, so I'm not concerned about that. That's part of our UDO. Do we have, in our UDO for parking lots, we have requirements for bushes along the edge? Does this fall into that or not?
Yes, the parking area landscaping does apply in certain scenarios, depending on how far away they are from an adjacent lot line or if they're located in front of one of the buildings. And I believe this far west parking lot does require it on both the outer edge and along the front.
Okay.
That's
So that
correct.
may be something for them to know to start with, and then talk with the neighbors to see if maybe some additional trees or something might be appropriate. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything I had questions about has already been addressed. If you happen to have come with a pile of business cards, if there's any neighbors that would like to be able to get in touch, let them know that they can get that from you, and we'll see you back at
One other
we'll have
thing.
one more comment, and then we'll see you back at a future meeting.
Yeah, it's always me. I think that the lady who got up and talked about that curve and the need for maybe a guardrail, if somebody could pass that on to Jonathan Nail, it might be information he would find useful and
Yeah.
thoughtful.
Yeah, we can let Dave Lucas know. 146 is a county-regulated highway,
Oh, okay.
so we can
Yeah.
let Dave know.
Because they might not have even thought of that. And with this traffic, especially there will be some teenagers coming along there, maybe that would be something they want to think about. Thank you, that's it.
Very good. Nothing further needs to happen to this tonight. We'll see you back at a future meeting. Next item is Lancaster 2, petition number 2108-ODP-19 and 2108-SPP-19. This also is here as a public hearing with no further action on our part tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department, presenting on behalf of Corey Meyer this evening. For you this evening, for a public hearing, we have a primary plat and overall development plan for 90 lots on 36 acres in the Lancaster Phase 2 PUD. This site is located at the northeast corner of 186th Street and Casey Road and includes the entirety of the Lancaster Phase 2 PUD district, which was adopted on March 8th of this year. This item was properly noticed and advertised for a public hearing. We have received no public comments. Some items on this are still outstanding, and compliance will be confirmed prior to this item appearing on a subsequent agenda for final consideration. I do have petitioners available in person or on the call tonight, including Jesse Pullman, Tim Walter, and Kyle Eichhorn. They do not plan to present, but are available for questions if you have any, and I am available if you have any questions of the department. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this at 8:01 p.m. Do we have any cards or emails?
I have no cards for this one. And no emails at this time.
Okay, we'll hold for literally just about a minute. If anybody is attending virtually and wants to make a comment, let us know very, very quickly at planners@westfield.in.gov. Applies to all of the upcoming petitions as well. If there are no sudden emails, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 8:02. And we'll go through commissioner comments, starting with Kristen Berkman.
None, thank you.
Very good. Mike Johns.
No questions, no comments, thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Spolcherick.
One very general comment, and it's something I've been noticing just over the course. We're supposed to have some naturalized looking ponds in places, and I don't know if anyone's noticed, but a lot of our ponds that we're getting are not natural at all in appearance. So it's just something I want to point out, and it's kind of irking me. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt Deck.
I don't have any comments.
No, thank you. Dr. Kelleher.
Thank you. No comments, except I have not driven around, but I know in our UDO, it does say that ponds have to be natural looking, so I don't know, what staff does for that, but
Yeah, so we're usually commenting on the edges. It discusses having meandering edges and not being kind of box-shaped or very straight edges. So this may be a comment in this TAC report. It's still early on in the process, so that's usually something that's discussed during the TAC phase of the process.
okay. And I thought there was supposed to be some landscaping around it to make it.
They do require some landscaping, which
Okay.
should be shown on the landscape plan. Let me get that pulled up. So in this one, what they're showing right now is mainly the landscaping going along the streets. And I do believe this PUD used a landscaping plan. So the landscaping was actually approved with the PUD portion of the process. So this would be the same landscaping that they presented during the PUD phase of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Victor McCarty.
No questions or comments from me, thank you.
Very good. I have nothing further to add as well, so we'll see this back at a future meeting and move on to our next item, which is Midland South, petition 2108-ODP-20. and 2108-SPP-20.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. This proposal is for the overall development plan and primary plat of one lot on approximately 3.37 acres in the Midland South PUD. This project is located at the northwest corner of Cherry Street and Roosevelt Street. This item is up for a public hearing tonight and has been properly noticed and advertised. Staff has received one public comment, which is included as an exhibit. Justin Moffett of Old Town Companies is here tonight to make a brief presentation. He is available for questions, as am I, if there are any of staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's a more detailed one. Thank you. Good evening, Justin Moffett on behalf of Old Town. We were at the Plan Commission recently to discuss the PUD and back to discuss the overall development plan. Very similar to the process we just went through with Union Square. We're not here to talk about architecture. We will be bringing back images that are, I believe, duplicates of what you saw as the character images, but we'll be sharing that back with the Plan Commission here in the next few weeks and months. We are really locking in the overall development plan so we can begin site work. So we have some demo and clearing and underground utility work we'd like to get started yet this late summer, early fall. Just point out a few highlights. Quantitatively, I don't think there's much different than what you previously approved. There's a few perimeter buffer yard requirements that I would just want to make note of. As we were able to tighten up the site plan, we worked pretty hard to pull buildings in where possible to have a little more buffer at the edges. At the top end of the site plan, the north end along the Midland Trace Trail, there was a 25-foot setback line from the building face to the edge of trail. That's our minimum distance. The trail meanders just a bit, so there's areas where it's greater than that, but the minimum would be that 25-foot. We were also asked to make sure we had, even though it wasn't required in your ordinances, to have a buffer yard between the church and our development. We were asked to have a 10-foot minimum. We ended up accommodating a 12-foot buffer there so we can add some more substantial trees. Wanted to make sure that we were able to have a two-car driveway, full-depth driveway for each unit. So we have minimum 20-foot driveway depths for each unit to accommodate 2 guest parking spaces in addition to having 2-car garages for each unit. The only other major issue that we were able to kind of create some more green space and buffer was along Cherry Street. I know that there was a comment, and you'll see bottom right of the screen, there's an angled, 45-degree angle dotted line. There was a site distance clearance that city engineer wanted to make sure we maintained, so that represents that clearance measurement. We were also able to pull those Cherry Street facing buildings on the right side, the east side of the development, in a few feet to create a little more landscape buffer along that Cherry Street frontage. I know that in the public comments, there was a neighbor to the south, Mr. Rose, that acknowledged a concern over the right-of-way measurements. We have accommodated the right-of-way that was required for us to give up in the ordinances. We've been working with the city engineer on that. I do not believe that on-street parking is a requirement of our development, something that we wanted to add in. I think we have enough parking just internal to the development. We think it's an added feature. But we have more than enough space to accommodate our development plan, and we think the city's future right-of-way goals. But we have met the requirement, and if there are still outstanding concerns regarding Mr. Rose's measurements of his property and how it relates to ours, I know we have time between now and the next meeting. Glad to take that up with the city engineer's office, but we are understanding that we're in compliance per the city engineer with what he wants to see happen here. Glad to take questions if you have any. Thank you.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing first at 8:09 p.m. Do we have any cards or emails?
I have no cards or emails.
Okay, please bring it forward and state your name and address for the record, and Share your thoughts.
My name is Gregory Rose. I'm the gentleman that lives across the street. And I had a nice conversation with one of their engineers this afternoon. But I just want to make sure, because as far as I know, transfer that area that the city owns is 12 feet wide from my property line to their property line, and according to mapping in the county. And I just want to make sure that street don't come any further my way. I think it's about 2 foot or a little less in spots onto my land. But I got a retaining wall there, and snowplows hit it on occasion. So just so the city, if they're happy with the street, as long as they're not going to ask later on to come further onto my property, I don't really have a problem. But if the 10 feet, the 12 feet plus whatever they give up is sufficient, then it's okay. But I just don't want the city to come back, a few years from now and say, well, we need, part of your yard because I got a garage and I park my truck there, and it's a pretty good sized truck, so I need to have that access. And so, yeah, that's my main concern, just with the street. I appreciate them giving more visibility on the corner and so forth. And I guess that's my comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Has anything further surfaced for comments?
I still have no emails.
Okay. Having given previous reminders numerous times, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this at 8:11 p.m. And first, give Mr. Moffett an opportunity if there's anything he feels he can address now. If not, sounds like there's maybe a meeting that you need to have to finalize things. So we'll go through commissioner comments. Start with Mike Johns.
Justin, I would just like to again thank you for the work that you did to add some buffer behind the church there. I know that they'll be happy with that. And other than that, I think it's looking pretty good. Appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljarek.
No comments, except for I'd really like to get the full clarification from engineering before the next meeting about this issue with the neighbor in that street. That's it.
Very good, thank you. Matt Deck.
No comments.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher.
I agree with the comments that have been put forth already. I think we don't know anything about where the road is and the road widths, so that's not something that we are involved with. And it might be worthwhile if Mr. Rose met with our city engineer so it could be defined what is by both sides so that we know where we're going forth. That's it.
Thank you. Victor McCarty.
Nothing additional from me, thank you.
Very good. Kristen Berkman.
Just want to echo Mr. John's comments on the buffering, and thank you for adding that landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing different to add. Meeting with the city engineer, is that something that needs to wait till next week? Jonathan Nail is not available right now. Is he out all week, or do you know?
I believe he's out through either till tomorrow or through tomorrow.
all right,
He's not
so
out all
it's
week,
not a real
though.
long time. All right, so Justin will coordinate the meeting with Mr. Rosen, Jonathan Nail, and if staff needs to be a part of it, staff will be a part of it.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you back with us at a future meeting. Nothing further is required tonight. Item next is Bonterra, petition number 2108-ODP-21 and 2108-SPP-21, before us for a public hearing.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. President, members of the commission. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, we have a primary plat and overall development plan for 138 lots and 2 blocks on 28.77 acres in the Bonterra PUD. This site is located on the south side of State Road 32, about a quarter mile east of Gray Road, and includes the entirety of the Bonterra PUD district, which was adopted on June 14th of this year. This item was properly noticed and advertised for a public hearing this evening. We did receive one public comment that you should have and was also uploaded to the agenda. And some items on this, again, are still outstanding, and compliance will be confirmed prior to this item appearing on a subsequent agenda for final consideration. I do have John Isaacs with MI Homes here to present, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jonathan Isaacs with MI Homes, address of 8425 Woodfield Crossing, Indianapolis, Indiana. The site plan that is, or the primary plat that is being presented this evening is consistent with the PUD document that was adopted a few months ago. And just to remind you, in this PUD, there's 138 townhomes. 88 of those are two-story townhomes surrounding basically the perimeter. And then there are 50 three-story townhomes on the interior of the development, which are alley-loaded as part of the development. The PUD addressed landscaping, architecture, perimeter landscaping, as long as trail connectivity to the Midland Trail. I did get a copy of the remonstrance from Mr. Whitmoyer, who is to our west, and his request essentially is to remove all the trees along both sides of the property line and replace any landscaping on our side with a mound. I don't believe that's consistent with what the document that we adopted. I don't have a problem reaching out to Mr. Whitmire.
Okay, please do.
Thank you.
He's on your east, not your west. All right. This item is before us for a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 8:16 p.m. Are there any comment cards or emails?
I do not have any cards or emails at this time.
Is there anybody present who has comment to make? If not, we will wait about a minute for any fast typers to send an email to planners@westfield.in.gov to let us know they have a comment. It is now 8:18. If there isn't anything in the inbox, then I will close the public hearing. And we'll do commissioner comments, starting with Cindy Spaljerk.
Just a few questions. So I see the path, the trail on the north side that meanders through the wooded area. It's on the landscape plan, but it's not anywhere else. So I was just concerned to make sure that that's actually in fact occurring. And some of these buildings look, at least on one of the plans, look like it was going to be problematic to try and get that 20 feet in between the buildings that's required on this one. And I'm guessing staff will, of course, ensure that that's the case. But if we can get some commitment there, that will, assurance, I should say, that will happen. And also, I thought there was a tree preservation plan required in this. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to go back and read it again, but I thought I remember there being a tree preservation plan, and I don't see it. It is, but it's not reflected here that I can see.
If they have not provided a tree preservation plan at this time, that would be a comment provided with the TAC comments. And we would expect to see that prior to the landscape plan being approved.
Okay.
Anything further? No. Matt Beck?
My only comment would be to definitely reach out to Mr. Whitmoyer, even if you're not able to accommodate what his request is, at least that'll open up the lines of communication, and I'm sure you guys will be able to come to some sort of agreement in the end.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher?
No comments, except I think you would find a conversation with Mr. Whitmire very interesting. He's kind of a feature in Westfield. He's very nice, he's very logical, he's probably in his 90s now, but I think you would enjoy it, if nothing else.
Thank you. Victor McCarty?
Nothing additional from me, thank you.
Very good. Kristen Berkman?
None, thank you, Bob.
Okay. I too have nothing to comment on tonight. So we have nothing further with this evening. We'll see you back at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Item next is Grand Millennium Center PUD, an amendment, number 1, petition 2108-PUD-21, before us for a public hearing.
Yes, thank you and good evening. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we have a proposed PUD amendment to the Grand Millennium Center PUD District. This 58-acre site is located on the north side of David Brown Drive on both sides of the new Westfield Boulevard and was zoned the Grand Millennium PUD in 2017 with the ordinance's adoption. The current ordinance permits mixed-use development, including commercial and multifamily development specified in certain areas. The proposed amendment would permit multifamily in all areas of the PUD district and add townhouse dwellings as a permitted use in the multifamily district. Additionally, the ordinance includes a few standards to help regulate the new proposed layout and uses. This item was properly noticed and advertised for a public hearing. One comment was received after 5 p.m. today, which was sent directly to the APC email and has also been forwarded on to the petitioner. I do have David George with CRG Residential, as well as Birch Dalton with Edrock Development here this evening. They do plan to make a brief presentation, after which both they and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is David George with CRG Residential. Our offices are at 805 City Center Drive in Carmel, Indiana. Pam did a good job of describing the existing PUD. Edrock Development and 3132 Investors are the owners. CRG Residential is a residential multi-use developer, and we're looking at a project within the PUD as it stands now. We were looking at some changes which would help us as we start to work with the marketplace. What you see here that Pam has up is the existing PUD map. So north is to the left, and so that kind of orients you the way that is. I just wanted to share a couple things, 3 main things with the different requests that we would have. Excuse me. The first is north of Anna Kendall drain, which you can see the blue line there. So the north would be to the left. Right now, the multi-use area is where a certain amount of multifamily is allowed. So we would like to have the opportunity to adjust that size and where that is within that area. So some of the commercial district might change a little bit, and some of the areas of where the multi-use would shift a little bit. Also, right now it's capped at 250 units. We would propose to take from the south side, there's a certain allowance of multifamily. We would allot 50 of those units to go to the north. So a cap of, instead of 250, it would be a cap of 250, it would be a cap of 300, and it could shift a little bit. The second item is over where it says the multifamily district. That is an area that is now strictly for a certain number of multifamily units. As I said before, we would shift 50 of those to the other area. And then also back to the multifamily district, what we're looking at now is potentially more of a for sale product, townhome type product potentially. So part of our language request to you and the council would be to shift that and allow that for sale product. That's the second item. The third item is in the commercial district to the south of Anna Kendall drain, would be potentially to have more of a multi-use, potentially a little bit more heavily the residential. So the third thing in the language would be to allow some of the multifamily district to be able to move there. So overall, the number of units would be the same. We might not even build up to that level, but what's in the PUD now would be the same. It would just be shifting where those allowances are. We did have a neighborhood meeting. The family that, we had one family that came, they talked a little bit about the access, and we shared with them that everything would be accessed off of Westfield Boulevard. They wanted to make sure that nothing would come to the east, which would be on the other side of the multifamily district. And then we also had the email today, which had a little bit about the multifamily, which is in the district that's currently allowed. So like I said, our second request would be able to shift that to more of a potentially for sale product, which I think would serve at least what that individual had sent. Bert, I don't know if you have anything now or just wait till after the comments? Okay, that's all we have. We look forward to any comments and we'll address them at that point.
Thank you. We'll open a public hearing on this at 8:25 p.m.
Okay, I have two cards right now. The first is Jeremiah Kitchell.
Is this on? Jeremiah Kitchell, 224 David Brown Drive. Just want to say, guys, thank you. I'm excited. I appreciate the risk that you take in undertaking a development of this size. So I'm your neighbor, essentially on David Brown, 2 houses to the east. And I'm excited for you guys and your plans. I hope you have nothing but smooth sailing with all of this. I wanted to make a comment, and I don't know if you guys can flex your influence or industry, but I've been in communication with citizens of Westfield, and currently I'm probably one of only a handful of people without public sewer access in downtown proper. And they informed me that the closest access is at the entryway of the Cherrywood neighborhood. So I don't know if you guys have gotten to sewer evaluation or not, but you would have a neighbor that would appreciate it if you ran it from Cherrywood west on David Brown Drive, so it would conveniently go past my place. And that is my only comment. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Do we have another card?
Yes, Margaret Crease.
Well, Margaret Priest is coming forward. I'll throw out another reminder to anybody that might be attending virtually. If there is a comment that you would like to make, please type quickly and use the petition number in the subject line and send it to planners@westfield.in.gov. At the conclusion of the in-person comment, we'll close the public hearing.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Thank
State
you.
your name and address for the record.
My name's Margaret Creasy, and I live at 1512 Cherrywood Court. And my property, I represent a group of my neighbors. Some of them can't come, well, everybody who isn't here is for some medical reason or another, but I have one with me. But our property, and we've been talking to Birch, really appreciate his just being willing to talk to us, you know, on various things about this. But our property, we are at the end of Cherrywood. There's 4 or 5 houses there that right at the end of Cherrywood that butts up against that property, that little section above. I think and so we're actually happy that the zoning would be changing from, commercial to like a multifamily dwelling. If I may not understand completely everything going on with that, but I think that's what I'm understanding. So we're happy about that. The one thing that we are concerned about is the potential. Of course, we hate to see the field, gone, but we know that's going to happen. I built my house 26 years ago, and I'm still there. 4 years ago, I built on another 700 square feet and moved my elderly mother in with me, so she is there. And she sits in that back part and just loves the sky and the sunsets. So we're hoping to preserve some of that. We understand, the wildlife and so forth. We'll lose some of that. But our biggest concern is probably the sky. And I know in some of the apartments, and again, like I said, Birch has been just so willing to talk to us about this, so I so appreciate that. But I know that there are some homes, especially I'm on this pie-shaped lot that, is fairly wide, but it's only about 33 feet out to the property, at the end of my property line right now. So anything that's even 20 feet beyond that, you build a 2-story, that's pretty much our sky in the backyard. So what we're hoping is that maybe, you know, the buildings would be considered to be closer to those landmark apartments and maybe even closer to the road. And then some of that back area, even with South Ridge and, you know, so forth, could be, some of the homes that are back there, we could still maintain a little bit of our sky. And for my mom, that is particularly important who grew up on a farm. So this has just been very comfortable for her to be there. So that is my request, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
I have no additional emails or cards on this project.
Okay. Then at 8:30 PM, I close the public hearing. And petitioner responses to the comments you've heard so far? Do you have something you are able to address?
Birch Dalton, Edge Rock, 555 East Main Street, and talk with Ms. Creasy. You know, and I appreciate you guys have to look at prints and then hope it looks like that when it's built, because I deal with that a lot. I think if you go down Westfield Boulevard, we're seeing the result of something that, if you go on the east side of that drain has gotten a lot bigger and a lot deeper. And I'm sure it was used to help Grand Junction and its drainage issue, more so than the road. Working with Jeremy and Jonathan, when we put the road cut in, you know, this is such a pristine property that we only want to have one road cut north of the Anna Kennel and one south of it. So I'm going to walk over and show and kind of how we're going to address her issue. But right here is the narrowest neck of that drain right here. So, you know, some of those trees got lost when the road went into the drain. So she's right here. So if you remember that trail that goes all the way out, or that 30-foot section that goes to Union Street that we left natural, I think by the time we're done planting that road and cutting in, this will give a natural buffer to her. You know, if it's something that she needs to buy to feel comfortable about, we may look at that for all these people here. So we have to build a bridge now. That was an unseen cost for that area. And with, you know, market changes and so forth, we felt that a high-end quality townhome product going in there, you know, cutting the density from the 500 potential units in there down to more like 50 townhomes made a lot of sense. The sewer part, obviously, that's evolved a bunch with all the work going on downtown. So we're going to be putting in a lift station just south of Anna Kennel Drain and the new bridge to service our entire property, both north and south. So we'll be obligated to drop the line all the way down to David Brown. And I believe he said he was 2 lots over. So, you know, I think our connection's going the other way, but we'll see. But if not, it'll run right past his house. So, but we're happy to talk to these people and help them in any design we're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. President, we did receive one email comment shortly after the hearing closed when Mr.
Okay.
Dalton was speaking. Do you want me to forward it on or read it to you guys? It's not very long.
Please read it.
Okay. Jeff Roush emailed asking, is there a plan to segregate commercial and residential based on the creek? North residential, south commercial, as a question.
Okay, thank you. Pass it along to petitioner and APC. So we'll move on to commissioner comments. And we'll start them this round with Matt Deck.
Just that it sounds like Birch and David have already held a public meeting with their future neighbors to open up the lines of communication. And then even a couple of public comments this evening, and you can already tell it sounds like there's already a dialogue going on. I would just say that it sounds like as this project continues that Birch and David are more than willing to work with those around them, and it sounds like this project's going to end up being very successful. And those are my only comments.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher.
Most of my comments are just questions. If we can put up the original plan with the big colored, so you have 2 commercial districts, you have the mixed-use district, and the multifamily, and the green is not part of your, okay. Yeah, I didn't think so. In the multifamily, you are now proposing changing that to townhomes? Or, because initially it was,
Flexibility to have townhomes there.
okay, but you could still do apartments or multifamily like was originally planned?
Correct, but
Okay.
we would like to reduce the number of apartments there and disperse them across the commercial districts.
Okay, but this isn't in any way guaranteeing that there would just be townhomes there. You could also have apartments on that parcel.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to get my bearings here. What else did I have? And the height limit on that area, I think, was 45 feet in the original PUD, so that is not changing, correct?
Couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She asked about the height limit on that area.
I'm stuck here. I think the height limit on that multifamily was originally 45 feet with then a bonus if you moved farther away from the property line. So that has not changed at all, correct?
Well, we worked a little bit, I think, Pam, you're pulling that up.
Yeah.
So just in that area, correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, we've got a change so that if it is the townhome product, there's a limit on stories, and then the multifamily in that area. So you can see at the very end, where she's got the mouse, the townhome dwellings, 20 feet. And then the 3 stories, if it's multifamily.
Yeah, that would be in the commercial district. So multifamily dwellings in that multifamily district, the standard is not changing. But if townhome dwellings are built, then the standard becomes 20 feet high,
Okay.
which does retain that project perimeter setback because of the minimum setback in that area being 40 feet.
Okay, so if there are townhomes, it will be 20 feet high. If
Mhm.
there's more multifamily there, they will still be at the 45 or whatever the original ordinance was.
Correct.
Okay, got it. I have a concern about putting some of the multifamily on the west side of the road, only because that was supposed to be an investment in, commercial. I think we even had a convention center proposed there and some other things. So my concern is how many go over there, and how much of the other commercial that we wanted do we lose?
Right. Well, let me speak to that. First of all, this is something we're doing for flexibility, as the market has evolved and changed. But we're still, got our head down working on the convention event center. There's been a very complete feasibility study done and shared with the city and most of the city council, I believe, all of them. I think I sent it to all of them. Two, I'd like to comment on that because I doubt that there's ever been the mayor of Carmel writing a letter to the state supporting a project in Westfield. So Mayor Brainerd is supporting this project, Chris Jensen supporting this project. But with the complexity of raising the money for a convention center in today's market, we're just asking for flexibility as we move forward with the first phase on the mixed use. Moving that around to accommodate the library is one of the main reasons we want to move it a little farther south and more to the middle. But economics, if we could take 50 units from the existing multifamily, reduce that and put it up there, that would help. And then, just quite frankly, life is an accordion, have to have a little flexibility. If we had the capability of moving some of the units over to the southern commercial district, we still have to comply with the 4-story and the density and the urban look that it was, requested originally. So, but I understand your point, but, we're still working on it, and, I'm happy to share with you the feasibility study. We have been in discussions for about 2 years with a pretty major entertainment company who went to sleep during COVID like everybody else did. So those are just now coming back, but we're just asking for flexibility. We've made a large investment in this property, close to $19 million, between the road, the land that we deeded to the city, which was 12 acres, and the remaining 57 that we have. And with the library kicking off a very high-end project on the corner, I can assure you that we want to hold our pristine and campus look and make it the best in the city.
Okay, and I guess you're talking about putting 50 units in the northern commercial district and then being able to move some of the ones in the multifamily to the southern district. How many would you be moving?
Well,
There.
you know, we have a total of 750 approved on the site. So if we move 50 to the north for the 300 for the urban, that, you know, may have a parking garage, may have retail, you know, we like the ability to move some to the general district or the southern district. You know, is that, you know, 500 units? I doubt it. I mean, I don't think the market right now can, you know, take that and, you know, but we just want the flexibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. Victor McCarty.
Just that conversation helped me understand it better because I'm very much so a visual person, so all that visual aid definitely helped. I'm always in favor of a more mixed-use development, having that more flexibility, as you said, but just at the same time, you know, staying true to what was initially envisioned and proposed. So that's just all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
I just had a question, and this might be more for staff. When I was looking at the comprehensive plan for this area, it talked about having some retention. Is that already taken care of with the drain? I was just wondering how that works within this PUD.
So, and any required detention or retention areas would be looked at during a primary plat or overall development plan or subsequent detailed development plan phase. We can check with our city engineer to see what any projects done with the right-of-way improvement may have prompted with this, if that's done anything that would work with this petitioner when this project comes through, but without knowing what the impervious surface is going to look like, we can't tell them what their requirements would be for detention.
Birch, do you know something about this?
Yeah,
Okay,
so what our
thank you.
plan is to use a majority of underground retention. For example, the library, as part of our purchase agreement with the library, we're providing all their detention, which will go underneath their parking lot.
Okay.
Now, that's probably more detention than they need, but that surplus detention could be used by the apartments or other users on the property. The existing drain, you know, we can't use it just for direct drain. We have to slow it down, water quality, then it'll daylight into that drain. You know, there's culvert there, but I'm sure you've been down that road and you see the massive drainage on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say 100% sure most of it will be underground retention. But speaking of that, you know, we will go to the end of Kendall, similar how we changed the shape and the width over on the trails. You know, now that we learned how not to do things, you know, we'll work with Kent Ward and his crew, but we're going to maintain a lot of those trees. I mean, we have a preservation, you know, field of 100 feet on both sides of the drain. So the trees are an important asset. So drainage will be the same thing, but expect mostly underground.
Thank you. It was just something I thought was interesting for that area, and it was somewhat saying there were other areas of the Grand Junction that might be sending some water that way. So I just wanted to ask about that this time. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you. Mike Johns.
I'm going to have to really give this a little bit more thought, Birch. I appreciate the presentation this evening. I've always, in the back of my mind, I mean, I thought that I understood that this was a key commercial area for the city. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about it being a key commercial area, the Grand Millennium. When we looked at some other projects downstream, Lander Commons and whatnot, we spent a lot of time talking about this specific project and what we had anticipated seeing immediately next to Route 31. So my mind is still open, but I need to noodle it around a little bit more, get some more information on it.
I appreciate that. I will tell you that we just made a proposal to a 4-story medical office building in a new surgery center that their board is considering now. So that would maintain our goal along 31. of having high-class buildings. And I can tell you, it's not for lack of trying. I mean, Pure Development, beat me on Carr, and they kept it in Carmel, which is now a half-empty building, and then the SCP building. I showed this property to them years ago, and they chose not to come, and they ended up where they were. So I've been working it, but the office building's a little tougher now than they were a couple, 3 years ago. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljarek.
I did meet with Mr. George, thank you so much. And he knows that I am not supportive of this request, so I just wanted to put that out there right now. This is an incredibly important piece to our downtown. I mean, every piece is key to our downtown, but especially this. This is also US 31 overlay territory. The sub-district that it's in says we did not want single family there, and I'm just going back to what was in our approved plans. Reserving this area for large-scale commercial use, such as corporate headquarters, hotel banquet centers, things like that, was really important to me. So shifting that line and moving in apartments into anything reserved for that commercial component is not something that I can support right now. Thanks.
Thank you. The way this amendment is structured, kind of like Victor, I'm just maybe starting to get a better feel for exactly what you're trying to do. I was hoping not to see the residential between 31 and Westfield Boulevard, but I would certainly be looking at it favorably as long as it didn't come first or do something to compromise the site for some other more important development. It would also be incredible if it was over there in conjunction with something else that had lower levels that might be the commercial we've been desiring and wanting for all these years, and then add residential and upper stories. It could be a real plus, actually. So we'll wait to see how this all evolves and look forward to having you back. If there's no other comments, that
If I just add one thing real
Okay,
quick,
yeah, go ahead.
that Bert, you just mentioned in terms of, office buildings sitting half empty. Speaking of my generation, I mean, we are very, very much so moving in the direction of wanting to work from home. So it's definitely a problem right now of we're wanting to get high taxes from commercial use, but at the same time now we're moving in an opposite direction of people wanting to work from home. So I can definitely relate to the stress that can cause. It's just, as I said before, just wanting to stay true to having a nice looking facade along 31 and then trickling it out with townhomes or whatever on the opposite side, so.
All right, that completes our business with this petition for tonight. We'll see you back at a future meeting with more detail, and
Thank you.
look forward to that. Our next to last public hearing tonight is Urban Apples PUD, 2108-PUD-22. Staff presentation, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members of the commission. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we have a proposed new planned unit development district to be known as the Urban Apples PUD. This 24-acre site is located at 18326 Spring Mill Road and is currently zoned AG-SF1 with an approved variance for wine processing that was approved in 2020. The proposed ordinance contains standards to accommodate the expansion of the existing use into a larger agritourism facility. This was properly noticed and advertised for the public hearing tonight. We had not received any comments prior to the start of the meeting, but since the meeting has started, we did receive a comment along with a follow-up comment from one adjoiner, which has been forwarded on to you as well as the petitioner. If you'd like, I can read them out loud, or you can just read them in your email.
Go ahead and read them aloud. So
Do you want me to read them now or when the public hearing starts?
Once the public hearing starts.
Okay.
Yeah, finish your presentation, but then
Okay.
plan to read them.
Yep. The petitioners did hold a neighbor meeting last week on the 28th, and a summary of that meeting was included on the agenda. I do have Matt Skelton with Church Hill and Antrim here to present, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skelton.
Good evening, members of the, pardon me. Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. Matt Skelton with Church Hill and Antrim, with offices here in town at 116 North Union Street. With me this evening from the Urban Apples team is Noah Herron, Michael Hayner, and Mark Rupenthal. We are here this evening to introduce the Urban Apples PUD. It's designed to be an agritourism destination. It includes, if you could put the concept plan up, please. It includes what will be a working apple orchard. Some of the trees, the orchard trees along Spring Mill have already been installed. It will include a cidery in the area, conveniently labeled as cidery. It will also include the wine production facility for both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, which was part of the approval that Pam mentioned from last year with the Board of Zoning Appeals. The proposal also includes tasting rooms with food offerings, the play areas, a lawn with music area, and some interactive spaces with smaller farm animals for kids and just to be in an agritourism kind of environment. But these would include, for the most part, potbelly pigs and goats. It also includes the facilities for urban seeds in the area identified as seeds. Urban Seeds is an existing Westfield business that is mostly today mail order specialty seeds. And we're hopeful that by locating it at this location, that it might expand the opportunities for some retail opportunity as well. And these are specialty seeds, heirloom plants, things that aren't things you can normally get. And then we've spent a considerable amount of energy memorializing what will be going on in the various components of the concept plan that's before you. Those standards are included in the PUD, and I'm happy to respond to as many questions as folks have. But it's pretty self-evident from the way things are labeled. The shade area is an area that is set aside for picnic and outdoor recreation. The cidery is an existing barn on the property that will be rehabilitated. The larger area in the northeast corner of the site, in the area labeled as Vine, is the existing barn structure that will be rehabilitated. That will be the production area. And then the meadow area is really just an open space for play, for Frisbee, for kids to do what kids do. And then the lawn area is really for just passive recreation. There's a putting green contemplated, and a playground area, and an area for the interactive space with animals. So we did include in the PUD, there are standards that require thematic consistency throughout the PUD. There are time limits for when the production facility must be rehabilitated. That's going to happen in the next 12 months. And then the cidery building will be rehabilitated in the next 12 months. When they are completed, I think they're going to be re-roofed pretty immediately, both of them consistently. And they will ultimately have the same thematic color, same feel. And as new buildings, new structures are added within the real estate, they will also continue that same theme. We have reviewed the staff report and understand from reading it that there's a desire to restructure a little bit with just really how the text and the pictures work together, which I don't see an issue with it. We tried to organize the PUD in a way that was very easy to follow and easy to administer, but we're not going to be the ones administering it. So if the staff has other ideas, we're happy to consider those. And just for those of you who were on the Plan Commission last year, you may recall that this real estate was part of a proposal that was before you about mid-year last year. There were a handful of items that were really just needed to be tidied up, I think. There was some work to be done, but most emergently, there was a desire to address the land use issue related to the wine production facility. And so the petitioner followed that. I think the Plan Commission may have even suggested that. I vaguely remember, I think, being at that meeting. But went to the Board of Zoning Appeals and obtained that approval. So at the time, the thought process of the petitioner was to, once the dust settled and some of the plans became refined, to return and address the remainder of the site. And so that's why we're here before you this evening. So just a few updates since last year. This property has been platted, so all the real estate needed for future right-of-way has been granted already. The platting allowed the northern 10 acres of the previous site. Yeah, you can see it there, just above, yeah, right there. That allowed the conveyance of that piece of real estate to Sundown Gardens, who has purchased that parcel for future expansion. So the site plan before you includes about 30% less property today. I think there were some plans at one time or another for some lodging on the site. That is no longer part of any plan that is before you. The property to the west and to the south of this site has been rezoned by the Silverthorne Group. It has been through a zoning process. If it hasn't finished being platted, it's close. And I think it's still technically owned by the Banis family, which I believe are the emails that you just received. But they are the sellers to Silverthorne, and that community, if you'll recall, the name of it is Somerset. We have been in touch with Silverthorne. They are familiar with our proposal. We've worked with them as they went through their process. They're working with us as we go through our process. We're looking for opportunities for connectivity. They see what we are proposing as an amenity for their neighborhood, and we want to be that. We want that kind of connectivity. So they have indicated their support for our project, and we're happy about that. We've also, of course, met with Sundown Gardens. Obviously, they are aware of what we're doing. They're our direct neighbor. They have indicated support for the Urban Apples proposal, and they've also indicated an interest in working with us to try to maximize the opportunities between our uses that are a little bit different, but there's some overlap. And so that they would also like to just make sure that we are ensuring a good transition between our proposal and what they ultimately plan to do one day to the north. And so we're planning to meet with them, if not this week, very shortly. But we've already met with them before, so they've indicated their support for the project. We did have a neighbor meeting, as Pam mentioned. Last week, we had 2 attendees, both from Sundown Gardens. There were several questions, and I'll highlight some of them here at the end because I think we've got some of the same questions from council members early on. Let's see here. Yeah, so the early questions that we received, and I think this may dovetail with some of the comments that you just received via email from the Banis family, but one of the questions was, how are we going to manage parking? And we have done some preliminary work, design work, to know that if we needed to, we could accommodate over 500 cars. There's no problem with space here. Not sure that we need to provide that much, but again, that's something that we plan to work through with the planning director as the PUD is designed, to figure out, what the right mix is and what the occupancy, based on our estimated occupancies. So one thing I can commit to you, our engineer, we just weren't able to get it done in time for the original submission, but we will have more definite details on the seasonal parking. If you've spent any time looking at the PUD, you know that kind of the back 40 of the property, the idea is that seasonally there would be some parking available, similar to the way Spencer's U-Pick and some of Ruoff, I think, has similar parking. We can do better than just pictures. We've got some diagrams that we can offer some standards as well. But this isn't the only place. It's just a local place that a lot of people are familiar with. But these would only be used seasonally during the warmer months. And then, let's see, bathrooms was a question that we received. How will you determine the appropriate number of bathrooms? And I actually learned something in preparing. There's actually the Chapter 29 of the International Plumbing Code actually addresses this. And so there are standards that would apply to exactly what we're doing here. And it's based, I mean, it even gets down to what types of how many of what types of facilities per gender. I mean, because evidently there's different requirements for different genders. So, but that has to do with lavatories and also water closets. And then lastly, the question that we received was, how will we manage noise? And one of the things, if you could go back to the concept plan, that would be helpful. There are several items here that I think that are important. One, in the PUD, it specifically requires that the music shelter that is just north of the word orchard, it's the little box here. It must be oriented the way it is shown. The nearest residence to that shelter is over 2,200 feet away. The city's standards require that beyond 40 feet of the property line, any music cannot be audible. So, I mean, the Spring Mill Road right-of-way alone is 150 feet. So if you're hearing it 2,200 feet away, there's bigger problems that are going to be problems for more than one person, I'm sure. But so I think that factor is important. Secondly, we have tried to be sensitive about how the band shelter is oriented as well, because the buffering that is created by the improvements that are going to be on our own property would be helpful too. But again, at the property line or 40 feet beyond the property line, there are very specific requirements that the city has that would prevent us from broadcasting across the countryside. So, and I think the other question that you may have received in your email had to do with lighting. And lighting, I think you folks are familiar with your lighting standards, which are pretty exacting, actually. But I think the rule is 0.5 foot candles at the property line. And I believe that downlighting is part of that requirement as well. So that we are not proposing to alter that in any way. And then I think the other question was, how are we going to manage farm odors? And I suspect that's probably going to be more important to the owners than it is to anybody else, because nobody will come if they're not managed. So, and there may be farm odors out there now. I mean, it is AGSF1. So anyway, with that, I'll stop, and I'm happy to respond to any questions that you may have, either now or after the hearing.
Okay. If that concludes your opening remarks, we'll open a public hearing, and we'll first hear the emails and then anything else that is coming before us, and then we'll move back to your responses. Open the public hearing at 9:03.
Yes, so we received 2 emails from Mary Banis, and I will start with the second email, because in that one she simply explains that she owns the adjacent land to the back of the proposed urban apples, but her current residence is in Reston, Virginia. And then the first email she sent, she asked that you please discuss what plans are being provided by Urban Apples to lessen noise, nightlights, and animal odors that could impact local residential neighbors. And she did just send another email clarifying that she is still the owner of the property and is unaware of any conversations with the petitioner and Arbor Homes.
Pam, where is she located, please?
She owns the site that was rezoned and platted as a Somerset PUD. So this site and this site.
Okay, but she doesn't live there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but she lives in Virginia. Just received another email from Linda Nass, if you'd like me to read that one as well.
Sure.
Okay. And let's see, so Linda Nass does live at 1122 East 161st Street. Any use of animals requires special consideration for the care and housing necessary. Will there be 24/7 oversight available? Is there any experience with animal husbandry? How is animal use consistent with a lawn for music and extended hours of operation? Example, I can't see urban vines with animals. Fair Oaks in northern Indiana consider operations in close location with live animals. Any use of fireworks at any time would negatively affect animals on the property. Would visitors be allowed to bring dogs, for example, on the property? The evening hours should be restricted due to music, etc., on animals and neighbors. Seems like several uses that are not cohesive. How do trucks and farm equipment navigate the area and where are they stored? Will there be water and sewer on property, appropriate restroom facilities? Sanitation concerns mixing people and animals. What are the plans and what guidelines will be followed? And that's it.
Thank you. Do we have any cards?
I do not have any cards.
Okay. We'll wait just a moment in case there's any further virtual attendees that have a comment to make. Please hustle them into planners@westfield.in.gov. And it's 9:06. We'll give you another minute to let us know if you have a comment, and then we'll close the public hearing and move on to commissioner comments, or petitioner responses first, and then commissioner comments. It is now 9:07. There are no further emails, I assume?
Correct.
Okay. Public hearing is closed. Does the petitioner have any responses to what has come up so far via the electronic communications in the public hearing?
Yeah, and I'm assuming the Bannises are listening, and I've spoken with Mr. Bannis before. It's been some years ago. But if they'd like to reach out to Ms. Howard, we're happy to communicate with them. We've been working with the purchaser of the property, who I understand that's imminent, so no intention to leave them out. So happy to share or answer any questions.
I'll leave that to you
And
to work
as
out.
far as like the animal and music conflicts, why don't I respond to that after I have a chance to discuss that with my client? I don't know the answers.
Okay, that's fine. We'll go through commissioner comments, starting with Dr. Kelleher.
Pushed my button. We can go through the ordinance. I have a couple of comments to start off with. In general, I like the idea of something like this out there. My concern is with the details, because the devil is in the details. One comment that Matt made was the closest residential property is 2,200 feet away. That may be today, but there are going to be houses on both sides of that certainly aren't 2,200 feet away, so that's the future. And obviously, that's something that I think you're working with the developer and potentially still the owner. I don't know where that transfer occurs, but obviously you will take care of that discussion. As I go through the ordinance, I start off, first of all, with page 2, and you have a definition for agritourism, which is different than the one that we have in our UDO. I don't like modifying our existing definitions. It's a PUD, so if there's something different that you want to do, that doesn't meet our definition, certainly that can be called out. But changing our definition, I think, muddies the waters for future staff who might review this. So I would like you to, and I think what you took out of there was it has to be a working farm. But whatever, I would assume you take that out and put it as a different use or something rather than modifying our definition. Barn house, I guess that's fine. It's a stable, so I don't know why you didn't use the word stable, which houses animals. The only downside I can see of that is that there is a 150-foot restriction from the neighboring home, but certainly, again, in a PUD, that could be modified. So I don't have a problem with barn house, but it's a stable, and I don't like to create a lot of new definitions that aren't necessary. It's just my opinion. You have food truck areas, and I don't know, and this is a question for staff, whether we have any kind of ordinances on food trucks. How many, how often? Is that regulated, or is that just completely open?
Food trucks are regulated by the municipal code, not the UDO. We have, in some instances, in PUDs permitted them. So typically outside of a PUD district, if somebody wants to have a food truck that's not for a neighborhood party or an event listed on our approved events list or a city-sponsored event, they need to go to the council and ask for permission for that food truck. So we've seen that done for some individual events that just occur over a day or a weekend. We've seen that done for a recurring event. Earlier this year, Sundown Gardens asked for approval for, I believe, 3 or 4 weekends for events they had.
Okay.
But we also have had a couple of PUDs that, with the PUD, have permitted it, including the Grand Junction off of 181st Street, as well as the Urban Vines PUD.
Right. And my only concern about that is there a limit that we should be talking about? To have, 4 or 5 food trucks there every day, I think would be maybe not something we'd want, I don't know, but I want to talk about how many, and maybe a limit. I don't have a problem with food trucks, just, again, reining things in a little bit. The cidery operation talks about lots of things that are in there. Takeout restaurant, deli-style restaurant, I don't know what you mean by takeout. If it's a standalone takeout, that might be something we need to discuss.
I can provide some insight. Takeout and deli-style restaurant is a defined term in the UDO.
Okay.
So it has a specific
Great.
definition to it.
Okay, thank you. And again, we have a couple places where it has temporary use and events, but I don't know exactly what those mean or how often. I guess I'm looking for more of a definition from maybe staff on that, not tonight, but normally temporary use, I think, are limited in number or something, but that's an area I'm not clear what this means, so I just like further definition. The music shelter, again, I have concerns because of the neighbors that will potentially be there and how that might be handled, so I'm looking for a little bit more on that maybe. You have a patio seating. I'm assuming the only place you'll have outdoor music is at the music area, but I don't know. There could be outdoor music at the patio seating area or the pavilion, so I guess I'm looking at how many places we might have outdoor music and whether we would want to discuss those things. You have seeds operation, you have outdoor storage. I would like to see that outdoor storage is behind the building and not in front along Spring Mill Road. I don't think that would be difficult, but I think we're looking at Spring Mill Road and wanting it to be attractive, as I'm sure you do, so any outside storage should probably be behind the building. I have a question again for staff. Under vine operation, it says, uses defined as light industrial in the UDO, which are ancillary and/or accessory to the winery use. So I'm assuming that I don't like the use of the word light industrial. I would rather have just and other uses which are accessory to the winery use, because light industrial could be a whole lot of things that we wouldn't want there, and Noah, I'm sure, wouldn't put there. But there's a long list of uses for light industrial, so I think that gets confusing to me there.
Yeah, I believe that's the same language West Fork Whiskey used in their amendment, where they said light industrial as ancillary to distillery facility. So our light industrial use category, like you said, does include a broad category of uses. It starts out with a description of generally what light industrial is, and then includes a list of specific uses.
Yeah, leather, tanning, all kinds of
Yeah,
things.
which some of these wine and alcohol processing are included in those specific
Right.
uses. Some of them are also included in the agritourism definition. So we have a little bit of overlap between those definitions in our current ordinance. But like I said, this definition, I believe, is very similar, if not exactly what West Fork used, so we have seen it before. That said, that doesn't mean it can't be called out separately.
Yeah, and if it doesn't need to be, that's okay. If it means light industrial, but only those uses which are ancillary to the existing use, I'm fine. I just want to make it clear for someone in the future. And again, they talk about in the vine operation, outdoor storage. I again would like to see that behind the building, or at least shielded in some way, not along Spring Mill Road. Want me to quit or just finish this all now?
How long do you need?
I don't know. I can give it all to Matt or staff, but.
So you're pretty good at writing and circulating.
Yeah.
But if there's important
Yeah.
highlights to hit, if you could recap those,
Well,
that'd be
okay,
wonderful.
So, some other little things. It says subdivisions, Article 4.2 shall not apply. Article 4.2 says that in AGSF 1, minor subdivisions, or major subdivisions are prohibited. So they're
Correct.
taking that out, which means that major subdivisions could be allowed.
Correct. So
So-
that simply means, in this case, that they can subdivide the property. So major or minor subdivisions are only permitted for residential. So they're permitted in AGSF 1 in residential districts, which is how the property has been subdivided in the past. Our UDO also states that a minor subdivision can only occur one time, and any subsequent subdivision of that then becomes a major subdivision and has to go through the full primary plat overall development plan process, as opposed to a minor subdivision, which does not go through a primary plat. It simply skips to the secondary plat phase, which it's only eligible to do if it meets certain requirements, including being for residential purposes. So without varying that standard, this property could never be subdivided in the future from where it exists today.
Okay, okay. One other thing under, it's an AGSF 1, so there are things allowed in AGSF 1 that NOAA's not proposing to do. In many PUDs, it said these will be the uses that are allowed, and the special exception uses or other uses will be prohibited. So his use list, is this? Is that what he's limiting it to, or are we, that's my question. I don't think it's very well specified
Yeah.
what the use will be.
We can work on the language, and if it is intended that those are the only permitted uses, add only shall be the only uses permitted on the site,
Okay.
just to clear that up.
Okay. And lastly, and then I'll stop, the description of how these buildings will be renovated is kind of vague. Masonry shall be allowed, but maybe not used. I think that this is going to be very visible from Grand Park, and we want it to be attractive, and I'm sure Noah does too. So I would like maybe a clearer definition of some of the architecture and the materials. And I would shut up now. Give you all my notes.
Thank you. Victor McCarty.
Just like to say that I appreciated that Dr. Kelleher went first, trying to iron out things a little bit. No, I'm not saying in a mean way. I'm saying because I appreciate her attention to detail, because I share very similar thoughts to what she has. Because next thing I was going to say is welcome to the neighborhood. I've lived from this property just 2 minutes away my entire life. So I very much so want what's best for this property, especially now that we have Grand Park just across the street, and with just breaking ground on West Fork Whiskey last week, this very much so fits in lay with what we're trying to do out there. So one thing I wrote down as Matt was talking is because of the current circumstances at Urban Vines, is do not underestimate parking availability. That is the number one thing that I want to make sure is taken care of, is parking availability. Now, when I look at this campus-like feel for this property, one, I feel like it's the perfect use for it. But two, I see it as one of your other brands, Urban Farmer. I mean, that's basically what this is you have the cidery, you have the vine, everything incorporated into this. So I see this as, I know there's been problems in the past, Urban Vines and so forth, that I haven't been a part of, but I'm a part of this. And I think it's a great way to start afresh, start new, and just come out blazing, and just how the branding and everything you're trying to do out there, so that way we get the best available right from the gate, instead of trying to, oh, I need to do this, come back to this, blah, 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 blah. Something else that I wrote down was I appreciated the mentioning of working with Sundown, because I've been over there talking with them whenever they have their events of, oh, what do you think's going to be going on here, blah, 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 and they're going to be having their Fall Fest with pumpkin pickings, et cetera. So that's a great way to partnership, and I think before it was described to me or described to whomever of this being a high-end Stuckey's. That's what I envision. I think that's going to be fantastic. Again, the agritourism, it fits perfect with it. The music shelter. I went to college up at Huntington University, so you might know of Tui's Winery. Fortunately, my wife and I, we don't drink, but we have been up there just for a concert event, and I see that envisioning there very much so in line with what Tui's has. It's a hill-type facade. People come out, lay their blankets, whatever, have a nice night, etc. Very much catered towards my generation, so I think you're definitely in line with that. And then I just mentioned, again, in line with starting afresh, just because every time I drive by current Urban Vines situation, it's like you've almost outgrown that space. So maybe sometime in the future of thinking of just moving 100% everything out to this, I would be 100% for. Just again, because it's what we're trying to do agritourism-wise, especially with West Fork Whiskey coming out here, having that kind of continued campus feel of just continuation to bringing visitors. So, yeah. Anything I would say would be less intelligent to what Dr. Kelleher said. So again, I appreciate her being able to go first and just, again, continuing to iron out those issues so that way you don't have to address something in the future.
Thank you. Moving on to Kristen Berkman.
Well, I'll echo Victor on, I love the vision of this NOAA. I think it's fantastic. And then I'll echo Dr. Kelleher that we got to get all the details together. But just a couple of things. We're talking about the music, and I think in the other PUD that's being referenced, they set some time limits on the music as well of how late the music could go, so that's something you may want to consider. Additionally, the landscaping along the front of the road, I'd really like to see that enhanced and looking just beautiful to welcome people to what you want to do here, because I think it's going to be special if it goes through all and comes to realization for the community. And so I think just having that, a really special entrance, and how that road frontage looks along Spring Mill, so close to Grant Park, I think it could be really cool, and I know you're creative and can enhance that. I will echo this parking issue, which I know we don't have to, but we all are driving by 161st Street, and we're thrilled you're so successful there. But people are walking down the road without sidewalks, and so we just want to make sure there is a very thoughtful parking plan within this, and where you want to put that and how it looks. I thought the concepts were interesting because I thought they looked better than gravel. I thought that was really a cool way to maybe approach this. So I'll be interested to see how you develop that, and then probably adding even some trees within that parking area could really enhance it aesthetically. And then, have it also be the capacity when you need it versus when you don't. The existing buildings probably need a little sprucing, as far as if you were building those brand new, we would have architecture standards for those to look really great on this property. So if you can take another look at those existing buildings, I would appreciate it. I think what you're doing on this property, those buildings will be important, and you'll want them to look nice. So I think another look at that would be fantastic. The other thing I have is just a technical question. Maybe Matt, this is for you. It says in the PUD that the concept plan will be in major compliance. And then when you go down under section 3.3, the last line says, areas shall be subject to the terms of this ordinance and may vary from the depictions shown in the concept plan. Maybe that's just me. It's like, we're going to be in compliance, but it could vary.
So none of the areas we know where existing buildings are, so that's easy to do there. But all the other stuff, it hasn't been engineered yet. And so the language that you're seeing right there is exactly the same language that was included in the Lantern Commons for the exact same reason. Because the actual plan for each of those components of that PUD will come forth as a development plan review process, and it'll be presented before you, and you'll be measuring whether it complies with the standards that are applicable. So that's why the standards are so important here. So that's why we tried to spend a lot of time, in inserting standards, both visual standards and also textual standards. But I'm scheduled to meet with Pam on Friday, and we're gonna reorganize this thing. So I want it to be easy to administer, but if there's missing pieces, and I really appreciate folks taking time to look at this before this meeting. I know what's involved in doing that. So those comments are very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I guess, this music stand has been something that everybody's probably going to talk about because they don't want it to be a burden to the neighbors. So I think at this point, where that lands on this concept plan is pretty important, and where the animals are in relation to the neighbors and the parking. I think there's a lot of things that would be important to try to have in the concept plan. So Pam, do you have comments on that?
Yeah, so one thing I can point out, so in this 3.3, the kind of, what you're pointing out is maybe conflicting language is actually in regards to two different things. So the first sentence says, the boundaries of the areas shall be in substantial compliance with the concept plan. So that relates to the individual line, the shape, the location of each area. And then the second portion says, the final layouts and site plans within the areas shall be subject to the terms of this ordinance and may vary from the depictions. So what that means is that, obviously the cidery, vine area, those probably aren't going to change much, but maybe on the orchard, they need to move the pond here and move some of the trees over there, or maybe this, goat tower moves a little bit here, some things like that within the individual boxes. Can change as long as it complies with the ordinance, but the location and shape of the boxes must be in substantial compliance.
Okay, so the orchard wouldn't, for instance, be able to move to the meadow?
Correct.
Okay, that clears that up for me. Thank you very much. And Mrs. Spoljaric mentioned earlier that she'd like to see some of these retention ponds start to take on a natural look. This could be an opportunity for you on that as well. And I think you were very helpful during the Conservancy when we wrote that addendum. There's all kinds of ideas in that. If you need it, let me know with landscaping and different things, but that might be helpful for you on this. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to Mike Johns.
I've got some huge concerns over this project. I think if we were in the country, it would be a fantastic project. First of all, I think we just went to a groundbreaking ceremony of the whiskey company, West Fork Whiskey, last week, and they are in the same very close proximity as you are to Grand Park. And they've made a significant investment in the style of the building and the building that they're building there. And frankly, when I look at your buildings, we're really kind of talking about just not really investing a lot of money. We're just going to kind of redo what we've got. As a matter of fact, the commitment on the cider building, if I read it right, is we can repaint the exterior within 2 years of the approval of the ordinance. And really, it's an old barn. So again, I think with the proximity to Grand Park and us wanting to put our best feet forward, I'm not seeing that as the type of investment that I'd like to see in the area. The orchard, boy, I like orchards, but let's not forget that it's going to take 15 years before we have a apple-producing orchard. So in the meantime, I'm going to assume that you're going to be doing something to bring apples into the urban apple environment and introduce them in some fashion. To me, it kind of seems like it really is a music venue, and the agro-tourism is almost a second thought to it. So again, I'm concerned with the buildings that are there, the winery. Boy, I'd like to see a brand new spiffy-looking winery there. Something that would look similar, maybe compete with the landscaping company just to the north of you. But at this point in time, I'm just not really excited about the project. Sorry.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljarek.
Well, I met with Matt about this one, and I was going to get out my red pen, like I tend to do, and get in the details. And then I said, oh my gosh, it would be full of red. No offense, Matt, but we talked about that. Going back to the very basics, though, one of my biggest problems, I think, is actually using ag underlying. When you look at Garden Market to your north, and just to the north of that, Cedar Brook, PUD, those have the agri-tainment tourism kind of uses available to them too. Their underlying is GB or LB. And so with that comes different protections and different requirements, obviously, and infrastructure standards and all to go along with it. And that's where I feel like I'm having big issues with this one. And so again, I think some of this for me goes back to the underlying, and then what is all the different things that could potentially happen given what's available with these uses. Some of them are commercial feeling to me and not ag. Some are industrial feeling to me, not ag. And so again, using this ag underlying is just not appropriate in my eyes. So I agree with everything else that's been said. I was not going to get out my red pen till we see the next iteration that addresses these comments. So probably after you do that, I'll get you my red pen document. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt Deck.
Somewhat rhetorically and humorously, would this urban apples make Westfield the first city in Hamilton County to have a goat tower? I saw that picture. That's pretty wild. I think that's incredibly unique as well. But also, along with that, in a more serious nature, agreed with the earlier email on wanting to have more information with regards to the animal care, the volume of music, certainly if there were to ever be any fireworks, how much staff would be devoted to the animal care. That's something very near and dear to my heart. And then with regards to the music shelter, which seemed to be an area of concern, I know there's I believe a music shelter at the unbelievably successful Urban Vines. And I know a year or two ago that was a concern, but I have not heard anything with regards to that of late. So it seems that they may have worked that out, and I have faith that they would work that out with this facility. I did somewhat chuckle when Matt mentioned that parking wouldn't be a problem. I immediately thought of Urban Vines, which is less than a mile from my house, and the unbelievably jammed parking lot that is the result of NOAA being so incredibly successful out there. So I certainly wouldn't take that lightly and would want to make sure that there is a lot of thought put into that. And then again, I also agree with Mike on wanting to make it look nice. And I don't know that I've looked a lot into the upgrades that are being made. But anything being put in near the Grand Park area, I do think it's a little bit more agricultural out there than what Mike may have indicated, but I also would be very sensitive to the quality of the buildings and the work done to make sure that it's a real eye catcher and eventually as successful as Urban Vines has become and increasing the tourist traffic that is already growing here in Westfield. I think overall, Urban Apples, it sounds so incredibly unique, and again, could be another incredible piece in attracting tourists here to Westfield with the variety of new facilities that we're putting in. And overall, if we get some of these questions answered, I'd be very excited to see it add to the landscape here in the community.
Thank you. Planning up front certainly is better than the previous operation that you brought to our community. But as everybody up here has pretty well identified, there's a ways to go. Having the orchard in the place that it is when it's sufficiently an orchard, that's got to help buffer the sound between this operation and the neighbors who I'll assume actually do look at this as an amenity. That's a little bit surprising, but everybody knew what was happening, so you've talked. Hopefully the relationship works. But there are a lot of details, very definitely, that need to be hammered out. Look forward to seeing those. I'm very concerned about the buildings, like has been mentioned by a couple of my colleagues up here. They really need to be well done, not have a cursory redo of existing things. They need to be substantially brought to an attractive and good condition or replaced if that's necessary. But I'll stop repeating, which is what this has come to, and just allow, if Matt has any final comments to address. He did say he was going to do a little homework. If you were able to listen and consult, share that with us, and then that'll complete our needs for tonight, and we'll see you back at another meeting. But
why don't I do that? You've given us a lot to chew on, and I could probably address about 2/3 of the things that you folks have raised, but I'll do it in a way that it will be, you'll be able to digest it a little bit better, and that way John Dobashewitz won't get angry with me for
were you getting a little nervous
that,
with him sitting
good?
behind you?
No, Matt, I think we've thrown a lot at you, and I think Cindy had a good point that actually kind of came up earlier when Kristen asked about this school and architectural standards, and Pam said there are no architectural standards in AGSF 1. So I think that's what we're kind of struggling with, and whether it would be a change to a different zoning ordinance or classification, or whether it would be adopting some architectural standards from, other zoning classifications.
And we were trying to put forth architectural standards that in lieu of that. So if we need to adopt another strategy, I'll talk with Noah and his team, and we'll figure it out. But I'm confident there's a way through this. We just have to.
I agree.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and we'll see you back at a future meeting.
Just real quick, just one comment that in terms of architecture and so forth. I mean, again, I've grown up in that area my entire life. Just 10 years ago, it was all farm fields, country, et cetera. So to Mike John's point, I mean, it used to be all country. Now, with your branding, Urban Farmer or Urban Vines, just everything in general, let that fuel your architecture of blending the two between what was country to now what is urban. So.
All right, thank you.
Did our pointer
I
show up?
found the pointer now.
Oh, very good. Does it have working batteries? All right, last public hearing tonight. Spring Mill Trails PUD mixed use and amendment, 2108-PUD-23. For us for a public hearing, staff presentation, and then the petitioner.
Thank you. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you tonight is an amendment to the Spring Mill Trail PUD district, which was originally established in 2011. The proposal is for an 11-acre property east of Ditch Road and west of Casey. The PUD amendment proposes changing the permitted uses to exclusively townhomes. This item had a virtual neighbor meeting on Tuesday, July 27th. There were no neighbors in attendance. This item is up for a public hearing tonight. It has been properly noticed and advertised. Staff received one public comment, which has been incorporated into the exhibits for tonight. John Dabashewitz of Nelson and Frankenberger is here to present the details of the amendment. He's available to answer any questions, as am I. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. For the record, John Dabashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner, Platinum Properties Management Company. With Platinum Properties is Paul Rio, as well as Jim Schinover, attorney with our office. As noted by staff, the matter before you this evening is a public hearing for an amendment to the mixed-use district of the Spring Mill PUD. In an effort not to be redundant, I won't go through too much, just highlight for the commission the aerial image on the left, which is the area identified in yellow, is also highlighted in green. The real estate's approximately 11 acres. As staff indicated, it sits between Casey Road and Ditch Road today. As shown, surrounding real estate include several different neighborhoods. Residential subdivisions including but not limited to Gristmill Trails, Water's Edge, and Spring Orchard are to the north. Northview Christian Church is further removed to the north along 186th Street. Orchard View and Woodbury Ridge neighborhoods are to our east. Casey Acres Apartments are to our south, and then Gristmill Villa subdivision to our west. If you could advance there, Pam, please. Thank you. You could, yeah, one time to reduce it, and we get it all on there. The applicant has filed a text amendment application to allow for the development of a for-sale residential townhome community consisting of approximately 80 homes. On display is a concept plan for the townhome community as shown. Homes will front Ditch Road with garages to the rear facing away from the street. Access will be from Casey Road. So if you see, this is the site identified here, Casey Road, Ditch Road. All the homes here identified in yellow would have front doors. They'd be similar to this situation here. These is all front doors facing the perimeter street, Ditch Road, and then the garages are on the backside along this interior street. The internal homes are represented in these two illustrations at the top, a 4-unit building and a 5-unit building here. You can see the front door and the garage are on the same side, and these would be along the interior street here, the darker colored townhomes, and then the interior street here. So you have a situation where no garages are facing those perimeter streets, so the public driving by gets the view of the front of the dwellings along Ditch Road, which is the primary entrance, and then along Casey would be the rear of these 3 buildings with additional perimeter landscaping along that frontage. Again, no garages would face either of the 2 perimeter streets. Anticipated average sales prices are between $275,000 and $325,000. It's important to note that the current zoning of the site is pursuant to the Spring Mill Trails PUD ordinance mixed-use district, which was adopted in 2011. The real estate is currently zoned, would permit multifamily development of as many as 150 apartments, as well as various business uses. However, it's Platinum's belief that rezoning the real estate to permit a residential townhome community would provide a beneficial for-sale residential transition between the nearby residential, single-family residential neighborhoods and the multifamily residential development and future commercial development to our south. In conclusion, we had a neighborhood meeting as indicated by staff that was on July 27th, for which we sent out approximately 30 notices, but no neighbors attended. We appreciate your time this evening. We'll be available to answer any questions you have. And at the conclusion, of course, of your meeting this evening, we'll work with staff to address any comments that we hear this evening, as well as their comments before we return back to you at a future date for a recommendation to the City Council. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. It is now 9:43. We'll open a public hearing. Do we have any cards or emails?
I have no cards or emails.
Okay. For the last time tonight, a reminder to any virtual attendees, type quickly. Send an email if you have comments to planners@westfield.in.gov. Include the petition in the subject line. We will wait for about a minute. The clock in the lower right-hand corner of my screen has now flipped to 9:45, so if we have no emails, the public hearing is closed. Commissioner comments, starting with Victor McCarty.
I'll try to be brief, and I just want to thank you, John, for holding out all throughout tonight. Save the best for last, you know. But Pam, if you would bring up the contextual exhibit, please, that shows the, there we go. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Just for reference for my fellow commissioners, I live just south of where it says Water's Edge West, just directly south of there. Yep, perfect. So just so you guys have a concept of how often I pass this area. So basically I have one question and then just observational notes. So with it being an amendment, would it be part of them being able to use our highly debated pool?
No.
Okay, perfect. That's all my neighbors wanted to know. So otherwise, when I'm talking about other projects, and especially talking about this one, when we're going from 150 units to 80 homes, better architectural standards from what I can tell of what would comparatively be Casey Acres, I see no problem with this. I think it's a vast improvement from what it would be before. So thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
Just a couple things, and thanks for your patience tonight, all of you, because it's been a long evening.
If I have to follow Goat Tower, if there's no public opposition, I'll take that every day.
You don't have a goat tower in this? I missed that.
But it was an attractive goat tower.
Just a couple of things, John. One is, I see this does carry over that vinyl, which I know the original PUD has in it. I guess I'd like to remove that if possible, since we've tried to remove that in our UDO throughout the community, I believe. And then the second thing is on the side aspects of these dwellings, I'd really, especially the ones that you're approaching as you come down ditch, and on the other end, I see there's some trees. I'd really like to see that architecture wrapped on those with whatever you're doing on the front. For instance, I mean, you can see there's some details there around the windows in your character exhibits, and carrying that around and carrying the brick all the way around. I know there's some language that it only wraps 2 feet. Maybe that's the ones that are more contained, and you're going to wrap all the way around on the end.
Yeah, if it's an in unit
units.
such as these, or if it's adjacent to common areas such as these are, the ordinance as written today would require the masonry on those elevations as well.
Yes, so I saw that. So those are at 24 inches, I believe. And then, but on the windows and anything else, I'd really like to see you bring those window treatments around too, just so it looks nice from the roadways.
Thank you.
On those perimeters. And I don't think there's too many. Maybe there's just 2 on those perimeters, on the ends. Maybe the ones on down that have some space in between them.
Okay.
And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mike Johns.
Well, Kristen stole my thunder there, because I was going to ask you too if there's any way you could use hardy plank instead of the vinyl. That's kind of one of my pet peeves. Other than that, yeah, I think we saved the best for last tonight, so thank you, gentlemen. That's my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljarek.
I would like to see those details wrapped around the sides when it's viewable from the public right-of-way at all, or even the pond area, as people might be assembling there, it might be visible to other residents too, to be looking at. It would be nice if that did wrap around. I will say, speaking with residents of this area, while I would have preferred to see some office or something there, the people here vastly prefer a townhome project instead of multifamily, or really anything else that I've heard. So they're excited, actually, to see this here.
Thank you. Mike Deck?
That's my brother.
Matt Deck.
That
Isn't he out
happens.
there somewhere?
It's now in public record.
But you have a brother, and I'm sure you're.
No, that happens frequently,
I'm
though.
sure you're
People
proud
think
of
I'm
him.
Mike, but that's okay. I don't have any comments other than that I am Matt Deck.
Thank you.
That's an important comment. Jenny Kelleher.
Couple of things. First of all, I think it's a great project. I think it'll fit in very well there. The renderings that you show, you never show me the backs of the houses that are facing Casey Road, so I don't know what those are gonna look like. And that's, I think, important, since it is a road. The top two are the front elevations of the ones that face internal, and it looks like there is a 24-inch masonry or something at least that goes up partway. So while
Yeah,
they're
all the units would have a combination of 3 materials on the front at a minimum, with the masonry wainscot at a minimum.
Right.
And either like, you can't see it unless you zoom in, there's like a shake material here with a
Right,
horizontal
right.
siding.
So I'll just make it real simple. I'd like to see masonry around the whole building. Casey Acres is a first floor masonry. You don't have that much. You've got a garage, and 20 inches isn't that big a deal. I'd like to see masonry around the whole thing. All of them. You show it on the fronts. And anyway, I do have some questions on your general regulations, section 5. Front yard setback from the perimeter of the real estate is 10 feet. Side yard is 0 feet, but then we fix that by saying the minimum distance between structures is 20. But then you have rear yard project perimeter setback 0. Is that what we mean?
Intentionally, because this is a townhome project, and that SFA is set up to address a not individually for sale deeded lots, which the townhome sits on.
Okay.
It's the box that you have your home in is intended to surround the unit. The 20-foot between units and the 20-foot project perimeter setback is intended to illustrate where the individual areas and lots go within the site. So, and staff and I met last week, late in the week, and we're gonna tighten that up so that administration-wise, they're comfortable.
Okay, good. Yeah, that one just kind of jumped out at me, and I didn't know what it could mean. Yep, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to know what you see from Casey Road too, and that it needs to be similar to everything that you see on other parts of it. If I was inclined to be a resident in one of the interior parts, I would certainly like to look across the pond at something similar, but I'm not going to be quite as concerned about that. But what is not shown for the elevations on Casey Road needs to be something that we get to see.
In the past, I wouldn't have said it would matter too much, just because getting onto State Road 32 is no longer accessible with ditch, but because of Orchard View being approved and having Woodbury Ridge there, I would see the necessity of making sure it's just uniform with what's across when you go through Ditch Road, so.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll see you back at a future meeting. Thanks for coming and enjoying all of our proceedings. Yeah. And a food. All right. All other petitions on our agenda are continued. Are there any reports or comments from Advisory Plan Commission members? In the absence of those, City Council liaison?
Yeah, I'll do that report this week. We had a really quick, short city council meeting last week. We had a presentation on the RDC second quarter report from the two city council representatives, Bob Beaudry and Linda Nass. And then under old business, the city council approved the Sycamore Glen PUD. So that got approved by the council. Under new business, we had a couple resolutions, both that dealt with the Wright's Property, Grand Park LLC, and they're requesting a tax abatement. And that was introduced to the council and will be up for consideration on August 23rd. And that was it for the night.
Short and sweet. I don't believe we had a BZA meeting in between, did we?
No report.
Abstain.
That was a week before, yeah, I was looking at the list of meetings here on the website, so pretty sure we didn't. Community Development Department, you want to fill up 5 minutes and take us to a nice even 10 PM?
I don't. I'll let you round up, though. I don't have any updates.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? We have a motion from Dr. Kelleher. Do we have a second? And we have a second from Victor. Everybody in favor? Aye. Is there anybody opposed? We are adjourned.
What's that? Yeah,